Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 149th live stream for the Misfit Gamer Studios. I'm Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. Today, we have an item review from Cosmic. It is a spellcasting focus. It is a staff. So, interesting. I don't know if that's an item or a weapon. I mean, yeah, I don't know if you would consider that an item or a weapon. So we're going to call it an item for right now, but I could also have seen that be considered a weapon.
Okay, fair enough.
It's not quite a quarterstaff, though. I guess there is kind of a distinction between like a quarterstaff and like a wizardy staff. So
I mean, could you theoretically use it for melee attacks as well?
I mean, you probably could, like just a very large shillelagh. So yeah, so that's gonna be it's called the Jurisdiction of Apocrypha. Apocrypha. It's very difficult to say.
Yes.
But yeah, that's gonna be some fun that we're gonna have. Other than that, we do have the February community stream. We will probably have a poll finished up and ready to go out to Discord this weekend. So be mindful, join Discord, links in chat when you all have a chance to make sure that you are there for that poll. Other than that, I don't have any other updates. We can't go too awful late, so I'm going to try to stay off some of the tangents.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And we will get kind of into things here in just a
Cosmic's
second.
already in chat.
Cosmic's already here, which is good. Hoylepa's here. Greetings to Germany. Thank you all for showing up. Cosmic predicts a 7 out of 10. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see where we're gonna go with this.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
But yeah, good to have a little bit of confidence. Yeah, I don't know what to. The name gives me nothing. Like honestly. Jurisdiction of Apocrypha, the only thing that it gives me potentially is that when I think jurisdiction, I think of a region and area. So I'm thinking maybe AoE effects.
Interesting.
That's the because Apocrypha doesn't mean anything to me other than like apothecary, but that's not quite the spelling here. So
See,
yeah,
I always think of when I hear jurisdiction, I think of like a judge or something. For some
exactly
reason.
like lawfulness.
Like,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So
Like.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's going to be very interesting to see what we get.
And for clarity's sake, I know that I put audience can't see it yet, but I know I put up in the top BBEG item set. But this is specifically for the BBEG's like henchmen, right? And I believe there's a line in here that actually describes that itself. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is not going to be the BBEG's like weapon. It is just going to be found on perhaps one of his primary
generals.
Yes. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I don't think we have anything else to cover. It is 3 a.m. in Germany, so maybe at least I'm not drunk. Wait, who says I'm ever lonely? I'm never lonely.
Wild.
I am never lonely, chat. Drunk quite often. But let's get into it so we don't have to let Cosmic wait any further. All right, so we have the Jurisdiction of Apocrypha. Spellcasting focus as a staff. Starting out, we have a rarity of very rare. It is one of a kind, but too evil to justify legendary. So right out the gate, I'm not really sure what I'm reading here, what that really means. I mean, very rare, I would assume if it's one of a kind, and I think we've talked about this on stream before at some point, but talked about the difference in rarity and our kind of like ideology behind the rarity, right?
Yes.
And the idea of very rare is one of those things where it indicates that it could be one of few. Doesn't necessarily have to indicate. But for me, I always feel like legendary and artifact, while those have different lore implications, I think those also typically indicate like one of a kind.
Agree. Yeah.
So yeah, I just looking at the idea of, I'm not really sure what it means as too evil to be legendary.
So that is my question: is like how is something evil prevented from being legendary?
That's what I mean. What's going on, Serotonin? Nice to see you.
Or too evil.
Yeah, so I wasn't quite sure. So Cosmic, let us know in chat what's going on with that, because I don't really understand what you mean by too evil. And if it is one of a kind, I mean, very rare is fine. I don't really know if I would mind it being legendary as one of a kind or even an artifact. again, we don't really know what it does,
Sure.
but there aren't really any hard and fast rules.
No.
So legendary or artifact would have been fine for a one of a kind item, in my opinion.
I will say, I remember talking when we did have that conversation that a lot of the time people, when they are choosing the rarity type, they are getting the energy up from the power level of the item. And so sometimes maybe if this weapon doesn't feel powerful enough to be more than very rare, like I could potentially see that being a reason,
like a power level issue.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it was too weak, it didn't do legendary type stuff. It just does some small fry stuff. Like if that was the case, then I can totally see very rare coming down. But yeah.
Well, I mean, looking just past that, I mean, other than the spell or the weapon type being a staff and a spell casting focus, I mean, it is a +3.
That is
So
already
being a +3, I feel like, I mean, I could see
that's very rare.
At minimum, if not legendary or higher, right? Because I mean, I could see, I look at +1s and +2s not necessarily being common, but common in the sense of like a +1 +2 item weapon is going to be pretty easy to get your hand on. I've always felt that +3 and higher were definitely the rarer of all of them in terms of that. So
yeah, so according to 5th edition, +3s, all of the +3s that I'm seeing are all very rare.
Okay.
All of the +2s are rare items.
Interesting.
And
so
all
it does
of the
it's-
+1s are uncommon.
So it
items.
seems like what 5th edition is doing is it's linking like power level to item type, which again, I don't necessarily agree with. I think these should be more based on like their lore content and not necessarily their power level. Because just because something's powerful doesn't necessarily mean that, I mean, typically means it was harder to make.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, I have a hard time believing that just because it's harder to make just makes it instantly a different type of rarity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would do a different take outside of that, but I see why they're doing it. It makes it easy to map everything out. If you want a certain power level, it kind of just gets a stamp of a certain rarity.
Yeah. But I will say I don't see anything in there higher than a +3. So I haven't seen a +4 or +5 anything. So
Gotcha.
If that would have increased it beyond that to the
would have made legendary and
status or artifact or whatever the case may be. So I just don't know if they're just non-standard in 5th edition. But
okay, so we got a little bit also some insight here. So according to Cosmic, in their specific setting, legendary and evil are opposites. So legendary items are designed to be good. So
interesting.
So that's also going to be just something that we have to keep in mind is, you know, the difference between whether or not this is a setting specific, you know, or like campaign, like one shot kind of specific item, or if it's something that's, you know, usable, because those are one of those limitations where if we're changing it for the setting, it may not represent its, you know,
something that's takeable and usable by other people.
Well, it's not a good, it may not be the correct representation, right? If we're changing it because the setting doesn't make sense to use that word, but if we find out that, say, this would qualify as legendary under 5th edition rules, I'm just saying we have to keep that into account, right?
Okay.
Is if things are being changed to fit the setting, they may not be representative of what they actually should be because they're being changed to fit the setting, right?
Got it. Okay.
So I just wanted to, you know, just make sure that we're clear on that particular one. What is going on, Soul? And then we also have properties. It is cursed. So is there a rule set in 5th edition? I know we went over curses a while back, but did we actually identify what curse actually is? Like what is it defined as in 5th edition?
So they have like the bestow curse spell, but outside of that, I think there are a lot of it. I don't think there's any hard and fast rules.
Okay.
Like I think it's just whatever the DM says. Like you can be cursed by this, and it doesn't, and something of remove cursor of X level or higher can remove it or something like that.
Typically for me, especially when it comes to like items, and I see that there's an attunement here. So typically when I think of, this is more of a classic D&D mindset. So I don't know, again, how 5th edition and everybody else has done it, but when I think of a cursed item, typically it is something that will do one of or a combination of the following. Be alluring in some way, whether it's by visual or by AoE, you know, by some effect that it has.
It will before you even know what it does.
Yeah. So again, these are just one or more. Any of these are typically what I associate to be a cursed item. Is it'll be alluring in some way, as in it makes you want it, right? In some way, it makes it to where you were going to grab it. Whether again it's inflicting that on you, or it's just designed to be, you know, like a golden sword. It's just designed to be like, oh, I got to get that. The other aspects, though, that you more in common are it cannot be removed once taken, or you are very, very reluctant to want to have it off your body. So whether that's like a ring that you can't remove, or a book that you will fight tooth and nail not to get rid of. Those are typically like, you know, one and the same. Basically, you can't, you know, you either don't want to get rid of it or you can't. And it will usually have some sort of, you know, requirement to remove it, the actual curse itself. And it can, not always, but it can have other negative effects. You know, as in it will drain you of something, or anytime you like, one of my favorites was a cursed book. And you did basically, once you read it, like you never wanted to give it up. Right. So once you were in possession of it, it would be very difficult for you to want to give it up. If you ever read it, you'd basically like kill for it. And the problem is it was also a cursed book because once you read it, you would always want to read it. You would always want to get answers from it, because the part of the curse is that once you've read it, not only do you not want to get rid of it, but you believe it always has the answers to your problems. You believe that it contains all of the answers, and anytime you basically like a magic 8-ball, but in a book. But the downside was, and so once you used it, you wanted to just keep, you had to fight not to use it to solve a problem. But the problem, and then every time you do, you know, you did it, it got worse. But the problem was it would always give you wrong or unhelpful information. So while you were convinced it will solve your problem, all it did was either not help or make the process 3 times longer than it needed. So it's like wild. So again, not super destructive, but again, just the idea of the curse having a small like negative to it.
I do like that.
But those are the things that I think of when I think of a cursed item. Typically, I immediately think of you can't remove it or you don't want to, and you know it makes you want to use it or put it on, you know, what have you, and it usually has some sort of bad reason to use it.
Yeah, interesting. I think that there's when it comes to cursed items for me, I do not have any hard and fast rules. Like honestly, if there's like an idea that comes to my mind, like I like a lot of the ones that you're talking about, but I think it's just if there's an idea of what this cursed item could do or should be or how it should affect you, I do think a lot of them are going to be tempting. And I think that's the word for me, is it's like there should be some reason why you want this. Like whether it does something so fantastically cool once you figure out what it does, it's almost worth it even if it is cursed, if you happen to know about it. But usually it's set up so that you don't know about it.
Yeah, you don't get the benefit from it, and you only get, you know, pay its cost essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times you don't get to know what its cost is. Like it just could be happening to you in the background while all of this other stuff is going on. And then all of a sudden you start to realize what is happening and you're probably too deep. So it could do a lot of different things. But I definitely am curious what this curse feels like.
Okay. And yeah, and I'm sure we'll see what the effects of the curse are going to be. But yeah, it's always one of those properties I'm never sure what to expect with 5th edition with like something like curse, because there is There's no
Actually curious
guarantee.
if they have any standard curse.
Cosmic had a cursed longsword that had lifesteal. The more they used it, the more necrotic damage they took during their turn, turning you into a right. But they were able to break the curse by letting go of the sword with crit 20. Interesting.
Wild.
That's kind of like, again, I like that. That's the kind of like the give and take that I like to see. All right, and then we have the attunement as mentioned before. This is gonna be a hefty attunement. So it required an Oathbreaker paladin, a cleric, trickery cleric. I'm assuming that's a subclass, or a warlock with a patron of chaotic and or evil alignment. So does that mean like chaotic good? They could be chaotic good.
Could be chaotic good, or it could be lawful evil.
Interesting. Okay, so right there, okay. So that's a lot of different types of attunements, which again, it's starting to make me realize like this is going to be a very, I think this is going to be a very situationally used item. Like it definitely sounds like it's being very much crafted for a particular purpose and not really something that would be very easily picked up. I mean, right out the gate, especially like as a DM looking through, new items I would want to see, while I could very easily see myself, adjusting the attunements.
Sure.
I see something like this and it makes me, cautious on whether or not I would. Oh, thank you for the follow, Vinci. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Yeah, I see a lot of these like limitations and I'm just a little bit hesitant on what its use and purpose will actually be in a standard game. You know what I mean? It may fit very perfectly
in. Be able to use this as loot in potentially like a what do you call it, module that you might do.
Yeah, exactly. Or is this really going to be the best purpose in cosmic setting in that storyline against certain enemies, right? Or is this going to be one of those things where it sounds like it's going to be great for the NPC that's wielding it, but once it gets into the player's hands, is it really going to feel like a D&D item, or is it just going to seem more like it was a tool for that particular NPC?
Right.
So those are the kind of things that I think of when they're limited like this. It's like what I would look at from this is I wouldn't mind this being shortened up to requires an evil alignment or a paladin with Oathbreaker. Or just saying, requires an evil alignment, paladins must be Oathbreakers. Like, it could be shortened up. I think the trickery is a little bit too much. I mean, obviously, it's a spellcasting focus, so there wouldn't really be a reason for non-spellcasters to attune to it. So I don't necessarily think that there's a need to specifically only list 3 of the spellcasters. I think this, in my opinion, a spellcasting focus should really be open to all spellcasters. But if you're going to put a limit, just put a limit on the alignment to being evil. That makes more sense to me, is to put an evil alignment, and then just say you have to be an Oathbreaker paladin, so an evil paladin. But otherwise, I would just say that this should just be open to any spellcaster at that point.
I find this interesting because an evil alignment, and depending on the type of crew that you're playing with, I don't feel like would be very common in a group. So
unless you're playing an evil campaign, like the whole party's evil, you're more likely not going to run in. So that's a fair point too. But this one already says chaotic or evil. So I mean, again, you could just shorten it. I think maybe just shortening it down to chaotic or evil. If you just wanted both of those sides. I just don't think that it's necessary to list out not only certain spellcasters, but it's not even just clerics. It's only trickery clerics. So it's like, why not evil wizards? Why not evil sorcerers? Like, what, to me, it's just, why not evil druids? So for me, I feel like it would just be cleaner to just let all spellcasters use it, because then again, this is very specific, right? Like, this is going to be very difficult for a DM to pick up and be like, I'm going to drop this into my world, because you're going to have one of these types of players to even think about using it, right? And that may be difficult if you're pre-planning a world and you don't know what your players are going to choose. Again, as a DM, pre-setting up either a campaign, a module, whatever, unless I'm going to tell my players these are the characters you have to play, what's the likelihood I'm going to choose this before knowing what my players are?
Right.
Like, so it just makes it harder to want this to be, or it makes it more difficult for this to be picked up by anybody, because they have to have those specifics ready. Otherwise, the party's gonna pick this up and no one's gonna be able to use it, and then it's just gonna get sold. And you don't want that. You never want that with a good item. You always want the item to be usable. You don't want it to just be in a loot table. And then if your characters don't choose it, none of your players choose these characters, you're just like, okay, well, it's an expensive
whatever.
item.
Shrug emoji.
So I would like to see that a little bit tightened up. But that's how I would. But let's look at the effects and see if we can figure out what the curse is. So we have a defensive effect. While holding and attuned to the staff, melee and ranged attacks against you lose their magic, causing the bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing to be treated as non-magical, including a monk's key-powered unarmed strikes. Also, other magical effects cannot be activated. Magical items that lose their magic by this effect remain mundane for 1 minute. Each item has its own independent timer. Wow, you're really hating on DMs right now. Additionally, spell attacks against you have disadvantage, and any damage dealt is resisted. You have advantage on all saving throws against magical damage and conditions, while giving you disadvantage on all physical conditions. Note, the only reason why this negates a monk's key-powered blast is because they are specifically stated to count as magical for the purposes of bypassing the creature's resistance or immunity to non-magical damage. Since it's considered magical damage, this staff can negate it. Okay, so let's unpack a lot of this. So you attune to the staff, and while you were holding it, first off, okay, so while you're holding it, all attacks against you are considered non-magical.
Correct.
That would be probably a better way to just write that cleaner.
Okay.
Is while holding and attuned to the staff, all attacks, melee, ranged, whatever, are considered non-magical, including monks empowered attacks. That's a lot just for simply holding on to this thing.
That's powerful.
That is not very rare.
That's what
there is. First of all, there is no way that's very rare. That is that level right there, bare minimum. And honestly, why is it a +3? A +3 with this, like, you're just straight out, because we haven't even gotten to the second paragraph yet. It's just straight out, all attacks become non-magical. Like, so
you're literally just, and it does say up there you're resistant to the damage, right?
Well, so on top of all attacks becoming non-magical, all other magical effects cannot be activated as long as you're touching this damn thing. But again, it doesn't have a range. It just says all other magical effects cannot be activated. Magical items that lose their magic by this effect are mundane for 1 minute, but there's no range here. So what? Anything, you just touch the staff and just, like,
everything within sight?
Yeah, like we definitely need because this is basically saying you're removing magic from everything. So that basically means whatever this range is, anybody that comes after you, if they're wearing magical armor, it's no longer magical. Their magical weapons, no longer magical. It's literally zapping everything.
This is an anti-magic staff?
It's definitely not a +3. That is a +5 bare minimum, right? Just this power alone makes it +5 and an artifact. Or you know what I mean? Like, I can't get behind very rare. It's way too powerful for that. And a +3, I just don't see a +3 magic anything being able to literally kill all other, because we're talking about, if you have a +5 sword, it is no longer magical. That cannot happen from a +3 sword. I am sorry, or a +3 staff. A +3 that can zap a +5, no. I would say that is way too underpowered. It has to be a +5. It has to be if it's zapping all other magic, it has to be at the top of the magic tier, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that's far too much. So second paragraph, so all of the magic effects cannot be activated. And again, we don't even know what the bubble is. There definitely needs to be a bubble here. I don't know if it's,
there's gotta be.
And if it's an AoE, that's fucking, like, is it just who I touch, who I attack with it? Is it anybody that can see it? There's got to be an understanding there. And then magical items that lose their magic are mundane for a minute. That means, again, whatever the radius is, they can't just leave that radius. This thing doesn't zap them. It takes away the magic and makes them mundane for a period of time. So it's not even just because there are like anti-magic shields, which I thought this was trying to invoke, like maybe a 10-foot anti-magic shield, which I could get behind, and I would put it under charges. I would have been like, it has 3 charges of anti-magic shield, 15 feet, and then all of these things would have made sense. But the fact that it's not, because once the item leaves the area, it's still dead for a minute. That's game breaking to me. I don't use that term a lot, but that's huge, especially at like, if this is the BBEG's henchman. This isn't even the BBEG yet. Like, this is just one of his henchmen that has this. And then again,
he would be my personal bodyguard,
and
bro.
then put this in the hand of a player,
next to me, dude.
Like, because late game, everything late game is basically like focused around magic. This basically negates all late game scares. At this point, this would only make late game just a slog because of the health. But all of the magic resistances gone. All of the magic, creatures, no attacking. Like it kind of literally breaks the late game by being that powerful. And we haven't even gotten to the other effects yet. And then spell attacks against you have disadvantage. But
anything that against you that has an attack roll associated with it, and it's a spell. So inflicts wounds, guiding bolt, all those things,
and damage is resistant. So it's not only it's not only a disadvantage, and again, it just basically means you autosave. If there's a save, you autosave. Or I don't know how that really works.
No, it says you have advantage against saving throws, so you won't autosave.
Well, and then so you have advantage against saving throws, but it says the damage dealt is resisted. So but usually if you fail a save,
so
it's
this
full
is
damage
this
versus
is
resisted
this is like
damage, right?
Okay, if you hit me, whatever damage you're trying to do to me with this magic, I have resistance to that.
So it's already going to be half.
It's going to be half.
But what I mean by usually saving throws on spells, don't those usually cut the damage in half if you
it's
succeed?
A saving throw spell, yes.
So the fact that you have advantage on all saving throws against magical damage and conditions, I get like the conditions part, but you see what I mean? It's like, but you already take half damage, so there wouldn't be a saving throw necessary against damage.
The way this reads, especially because that line is before the advantage on saving throws, I would say if a spell is cast on you and that spell requires you to roll a saving throw, you're not resisting that damage.
And see, that's weird. It's weird because I read this as all the damage is like any damage dealt is resisted against spell attacks.
When they're rolling a spell attack against you, you're not rolling a saving throw.
Okay, so those don't require saving throws on those.
Those don't require saving throws.
Okay, so basically, yes. But you do have advantage on saving throws against magical damage.
So it's easier for you to save when you would take half damage, and it's easier for you to take that half damage, and it's giving you an opportunity. Well, it's guaranteeing that any attack that
like direct damage. So direct damage is always resisted. Indirect damage, you have a better chance of resisting.
Yes.
Okay, but you get disadvantage on any physical condition. So I'm thinking like
I am not 100% sure what you mean. Is that
thinking like poison?
Yes, poisoned. I would think that.
Grappled.
Even stunned.
Stunned. Yeah. So anything that would be directly against the individual is disadvantage on all of those. So it's like, so the thing is like, again, we don't know, like, and there's no
able to stun you.
No. Well, I guess you'd have advantage, or you'd have disadvantage on that attack. So, but
No, because it's a physical attack. It's not magical. It's non-magical. Yeah, so it's a physical attack
and a physical condition, so you'd have disadvantage on it.
So that would be the best.
The only thing you can do is try to
just have a monk come up to you and stunning strike you over and over again, and then everybody fuck you up while you're stunned.
So already this thing is massively OP. Like just any one of these things, any one of these abilities would be great, but altogether this is so OP. I mean, you're literally shutting. And again, Cosmic, let us know what your idea was for the AoE of this thing. Like you can't just say that if I'm holding it all magic that I can anything I can see. You know what I mean? I mean, you have like I don't know what 5th edition says you have like sight wise, but like you can't shut down the entire battlefield just because you can look around and nope, you can't. I can see you, so no magic, right? Like, it's
and the way it's described, it feels like it's coming from the staff itself, So it would kind of make sense if it was an AoE, but like it has to have a limit.
Like now, if
30 feet, 60 feet tops.
now, if it were saying now maybe the balance is here. Maybe the idea is that while holding and attuned to the staff, melee and ranged attacks against you lose their magic. So basically, everything against you is downed. Maybe what we're not reading here is the other magical effects cannot be activated. Magical items lose them. Maybe the verbiage here is the caster or the wielder. Maybe it's not that you're taking all of the enemy's magic away. What if this is indicating that anything you have while holding the staff becomes demagicked and turns into a shield, essentially? So if I have a +1 shield, but I hold my staff, I now have just a shield. If I had a +2 dagger, I now just have a dagger. I can't take out my wand of fireball because it can't do magic right now because I'm holding my staff. But while I'm holding my staff, while everything on me has been disabled, I get all of these benefits. Does that make this better if we read it that way? Where everything you have disables in order for you to have this magical barrier.
Because all these melee and ranged attacks against you non-magical.
So imagine like you're basically
and having the advantage against the saving throws and stuff.
And then again, no magical effects can be activated, which means you can't cast mage armor while you're holding the staff. You can't activate anything on yourself. Does that make this more feasible than what we were thinking is it's affecting all magic items everywhere? Because that's the only way I can read this.
But then would your stuff only be that way for a minute?
Yes, all of your stuff. So even if you let go of the staff, all your shit's still gone for the duration of that time frame. Now, again, I don't understand why each item would have its own time limit because, again, if you touch it, everything hits at the same time, right?
Yeah.
But the only way I can balance this,
that's the thing.
The only way I can look at this and go, I can see a balance is if Cosmic intended the magical items and no other magical effects to only be against the wielder. That's the only thing I can think of. So, Cosmic did write us. So it's meant to be melee. It triggers when an attack roll hits the user, making the weapon that it used to attack them is made non-magical for 1 minute.
So it's only in melee. So when somebody hits you, so if I have a magic sword and you hit me with it, it becomes non-magical for a minute. So
the problem is this says melee and ranged attacks against you lose their magic. What it should say is melee magical weapons used against you lose their magic for a minute. Is basically
how would that work in a ranged situation?
I think it's the arrow. If it's the arrow is magical, it becomes unmagical.
So if somebody is using there's a artificer can basically make you have spectral bullets and not need to actually load your
you could call that you could technically call that a magical bullet, and that would they would basically turn it inert.
Okay.
But I'm thinking of like if you had a +1 arrow,
okay,
it becomes just an arrow. So if that's what we're saying, so it basically, as long as you're holding this, if someone attacks you with a magical weapon, it zaps the magic from the weapon for a minute. I still say that's not a +3. I still say that's a +5 magic item like level. I still say that's way too powerful. So yeah, so it takes the magic away from the weapon that attacked you. We'll say that. So again, that also means that are you including the monk? Does that mean that the monk for a minute can't make any magical attacks? Because you took it away. Because again, you're considering it magical for this purpose. So again, if you attack me with a sword, there's a +2 sword, and I take the magic away for the next minute, you can attack anybody you want, but there's no +2. What about the monk? Does the monk not be able to reactivate their empowered strikes for a minute? That's interesting. Yes, monks would be OP to counter this weapon. And then other magical effects cannot be activated. So if the first part is indicating that a magical weapon will lose its magic if you attack me while I'm holding the staff, and then it says other magical effects cannot be activated. So does that mean like I can't be put to sleep, or someone can't cast darkness, or I can't cast mage armor, someone can't heal me? Like, again, it's kind of, it doesn't really say what this means because it's not clear enough in terms of what magical effects can be activated by the wielder or by other people. Like that I think we just need that. We need that kind of terminology there of, but you know, if you're
that's
wielding
why I was
this,
thinking there was a range because of all this included.
And then we say that magic items that lose their magic by this remain mundane for a minute. And then additionally, spell attacks against you have disadvantage. Any spell damage is resisted. Okay.
And that's just passively all the time.
Yeah, I'm gonna say at this point, I definitely don't buy this as a plus 3. It's far too powerful to be a plus 3. And also just this kind of stuff that late in the, I mean, it might just be too much.
So
honestly, it might just be too much.
I have yet to find anything higher than a plus 3. So it might be that where plus 5 is the cap or the general cap for, I guess, 2nd edition.
Yeah.
I would say plus 3 might be the general cap.
That's
for
interesting.
5th edition.
That's weird. That feels weird.
It feels
it feels very weird.
Because that I'm not too familiar with much again except for.
So Cosmic's also saying that, okay, so this applies to everything, not just magical damage. So if a sword does 1d8 slashing and 1d4 lightning, the 1d4 lightning is just gone and you resist the 1d8.
The physical damage.
You resist everything, even though it's not magical. You resist. You take away anything that's considered magical, and then you resist everything else just by holding the staff. I'm thinking it's too much. I'm just thinking that there's too. And again, there's more. This isn't the only thing it does. Like again, if we were talking about a shield or like a plate armor or something like that, and this is the only thing it did, I could kind of see it, but I'm not sure I'm seeing all of these things together, and there's still more to read. You know what I mean?
There's
like
more to read.
Like, what if you used dispel magic on it? Interesting. That's a good question. Huelepa wouldn't use it symbol too many specific rules. It is very like again. That's also one of the things that can be very difficult with some of these things. Is as cool as they are, it's a lot of if this then that. Else this then that else it's very much a both. Again, it's one of those things, and this is I think one of the unfortunate things about 5th edition, right, is this is one of those items that absolutely requires both DM and player to have knowledge. Both need to understand how it works, both need to be okay with using it,
be very on board with what the gameplay using is going to look like.
They have to have an arrangement of who's going to be in control, like in terms of like, hey, this is a lot of stuff, you need to know everything it does, you can't ask me questions, right? But my problem with that is while I'm a DM who wants to know everything your character can do and help you guide through that, it's much different when we both have to basically constantly reference a set of rules and fake, you know what I mean? Like it's different when we build it together versus both having to follow a complicated set of rules, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I would say that,
especially for an item like maybe a class like you're trying to develop or something like that, but just a singular item to function.
Yeah,
I feel like,
and this is also a lot on the DM. Like as a DM, think about, again, this is supposed to be on an NPC. So imagine everybody's fighting this thing and you're like, okay, so you have 4 weapons, but 2 of them are no longer magical for the next 30 seconds. You don't have one for 40 seconds. Yours will pop in another 8 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot for the DM to have to be like, man, you guys keep attacking them and you just have like, you lost all of your magic. And you guys can't, you don't
get it back yet.
You know what I mean? Like it's a lot. It's a lot. It's very, very powerful. So I think that those are the 2 areas that I would work on the most is cleaning up some of the language. Again, kind of like we talked about the attunement, right? Just saying that, evil and paladin oathbreakers, like evil spellcasters, paladin oathbreakers, kind of clean it up. I think that we could clean this up quite a bit. I think the language definitely needs to change in terms of what it affects. Because right now, to me, as it's written, it doesn't make it very clear that this is only proccing when you get attacked. I think that's the first part of the knowledge or the first part of the language that we need to fix is this first paragraph needs to specifically state that when you're hit, by a magical weapon, said magical weapon loses its magic for 1 minute.
Additionally, you are resistant to whatever physical damage you take.
And then I would definitely suggest Cosmic putting in the exact example you gave us. So even putting it in the, I swear I can speak. Even putting it in a note, just like you had written in chat, where if attacked by a 1d8 slashing 1d4 lightning, 1d4 is negated and you resist 1d8. Like, if you just put that in like a small little snippet, it would make so much more sense.
Yeah,
right.
Very much so.
And then you can even say,
so.
following that sword will not do lightning damage for 1 minute. Again, just reiterating what this means.
Got it.
Right. So that's what I would clean up there. And then the second part, like, this is just a lot for it to do on its own. So I'm like, already I would maybe put this second part under some charges. You know, like as a reaction, you can burn 1 of 3 charges that reset daily or, you know, at sunrise.
Sure.
But like as a reaction, you can blow a charge and automatically resist any incoming damage, magical or otherwise. Like or magical.
It'll function exactly the way we're talking about.
Because then it doesn't feel too OP. It actually makes more sense that it would be a reaction and you can balance it a little bit better. But yeah, beyond it being just too powerful, just clean up the language a little bit so it's a little bit more understandable. And I would just say it definitely has to be higher than, well, again, +3 is the highest it can go. It's just, it feels very powerful. I do like that you added the disadvantage on physical conditions, but my biggest thing is the whole thing seems like it was geared towards magic. I wouldn't mind if it basically was also reworded and simplified to, this staff basically makes you resistant to all magic, but you have disadvantage on like specifically like physical attacks. So, because again, at this level, most everything you're dealing with is magical. So the idea that, you know, unarmed strikes would just be devastating to you. You know, so anything like that would be kind of nicer to say that you have disadvantage other than just physical conditions. I wouldn't mind a slightly higher balance on that too.
I honestly think with this power level, either it needs to have a much bigger downside or it needs to, like you say, kind of lock. I would say if you were vulnerable to physical damage or resistant to magical damage,
something like that
would be dope.
That's what I was thinking.
I would be down for that.
That's the verbiage I was looking for. Yeah. Thank you. That's what I meant.
So if that.
Oh, Vinci, thank you so much for the question. If you would like to submit your own homebrew to have us review, we do this every single Monday. And we basically review anything that our chat has. So if you want to submit something, you can go ahead and join our Discord. Link is in chat right now. If you'd like to join, go ahead. And we have the whole community there. You can submit to the community itself. There's a home brewing channel where you can just talk about what you're working with the larger community. But if you have something specifically you want us to look at, there is a submissions channel and you can submit your items there. They go to Kage first to get them formatted for us. And then we both kind of just blind read it. So he sees only very little to get it formatted. And then we both basically blind review it on Mondays. Yes, you're very welcome. I hope to see you in Discord. We'll keep an eye out to see if
I will do
Vinci,
that now. Most definitely.
We are cleaning. Sorry, Vinci. We are cleaning up the onboarding. So the onboarding is still kind of messy on Discord. So just bear with it, but we'll get you access to all the channels here as soon as you join. So I would just say that in terms of this, outside of it feeling a little bit OP, just definitely cleaning up the wording, make it a little bit more understandable that this procs specifically when you get hit by a magical weapon. Use the use the example that you did in chat, Cosmic, because that was a perfect example. It would make a lot more sense. And then personally, that second paragraph, I would consider putting that behind, you know, either a what'd you call it, a paywall, or
basically a paywall.
Basically, yeah. So I would put that in some slots, or again, just simplify it. Just say that while holding it, you are resistant to all forms of magical damage, but vulnerable to all forms of physical damage. I like that more than, again, the idea that a sword stops being magical, but then I also take half of the regular damage doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But usually at this point, most of the things that are attacking you the worst parts about it are its magics.
Yeah.
So again, you're going to get hit with a 1d8 longsword, sure, but it was the other issue, it was the other magic that it had that was the actual concern.
Mhm.
So I feel like that would make it a little bit more balanced in my opinion. Again, and most of that's because we know that there's still more. Again, if this was just like a defensive item and this is where it stopped, I might be more okay with just it being this uber like magical thing.
I will say, I do think a good element to this balance could be the curse.
It could be. Yeah, we haven't even gotten to the curse yet. That's
very
fair.
The curse, so a lot of this stuff could be really uber powerful, but have this insane curse element to it.
That is true.
That could make it look a little different.
So yeah. So
okay.
So that's just where we're at so far. So let's move on to the offensive aspects. So spell casting. While holding and attuned to this staff, you gain access to the spells Divine Word and Mass Heal. Don't mind those. You can use an action to cast these spells without consuming a spell slot once per day each. And they are treated as a paladin, cleric, warlock spells for you. So basically whatever you want.
Yes.
Additionally, whenever you cast a spell using a base slot of 5th level or lower that requires a saving throw, all targets of that spell or within the spell's area automatically fail their saves, and feats like evasion or uncanny dodge cannot be used. This can only be done a number of times equal to triple your proficiency bonus. All expended uses are regained only during an eclipse, can be either solar. Okay, so once again, Cosmic, I know you have a really good idea here, but this is doing too much.
They automatically fail their saves?
Yeah, under 5th level
dodge
or evasion. But again, it's like part of me is just like I see
Everyone's gonna be cast fireball,
right? Well, and again, it also doesn't say
like disadvantage on their saves, man.
Yeah, and then triple your proficiency bonus. It's like I get that you're doing that because the eclipse, but like the eclipse, it's like at that point just make it 10 charges that never respawn. Like you know what I mean? Like this is a late game thing. Adding this kind of a complication again, I don't think it makes it any more intriguing as it does. I see that you're just trying to make it difficult, but if you're getting this at like level 14 to 16. Even just giving it 20 charges is going to be fine for the rest of the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't need that complication in my opinion. And again, it feels like it's almost trying to be too much of a bully item, right? It's one thing to say that, automatically fail saving throws. I think disadvantage would be better.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can't use evasion or uncanny dodge in order to negate it it's just, to me, as a player, a DM throwing that out, like again, if I was just up against a DM and they just was like, hey, I have this thing I've built, like this new guy, and they threw something out like this at me, it would feel like I'm being bullied. To be completely honest, it's like, oh, okay, no saving spells, well good, I have uncanny dodge. Oh, so I don't get a save and I don't get uncanny dodge. I'm gonna take it. You know what I mean? Like at that point, player agency, right?
Yeah.
You've basically, I know that the idea is that the players could have this on them at some point, but when facing this, it just feels like you're just being like, no, I want you to get hit by this. Like that's kind of, again, anything under 5th level, that's, you know what I mean? Like you could spam so many good things.
5th level fireball, like,
and then no one can save out of it. That's literally, it feels bad. It feels bad. And to be honest, I don't know if as a player, again, so as a player, I would feel bad about going up against this. It would just feel kind of like being bullied. And again, as a DM, there's just so much here. So it's like, I get these 2 new spells, which I'm totally fine with. I can use an action and I don't, consume a spell slot. I'm fine with that. Right. And it's once per day each. That's not too bad. That's not terrible. Right. You could have chosen just once per day and you had to choose, but I don't mind, once per day each.
Sure. Yeah.
But
I don't mind that either.
It's like, but part of that is, now all of your 5th level spells are lower, just automatically hit. And no one can do anything about it. They can't even try to dodge it. It's just like, not only is it a lot to manage and to think about and to plan for as a DM, but I'm also looking at it from the point of view of how do I explain all of this is happening? Because some DMs don't care. They're just like, hey, this is what the item does. Let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm having a hard time understanding how any of this like connects, right? Like I'm holding it and it's super anti-magic, but it gives me it can do 2 massive spells, and it can make spells so powerful other people can't do anything about it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like it's doing both of the sides of the coin here. And usually you don't see that. Usually it can do one thing really well and then it suffers on another thing. But this is like, it can take magic away but from other people, but it can also take away their ability to handle magic. And it's like, you're basically, again, giving it the best of both worlds. You're giving it the best of all worlds. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, again, as a player, I would be just very much like, what the fuck is this thing? You know what I mean? I don't know if I would be excited to go up against this or if I would just feel like I'm not supposed to. You know what I mean? There are some fights that you just feel like it seems like you're just cinematically wanting me to lose this or get very close. And I'm like, there's other ways to do that.
Sure.
I feel like this is just a lot to handle. It's a lot to control. And then I'm really trying to think of what happens when this goes into the player's hands. Like how, this part, like the evasion, the uncanny dodge, sounds way more like it specifically sounds like it's been designed against a party, not for a world, right? It doesn't sound like so I don't feel so much that a in-game NPC made this for a purpose and a reason, as it feels like it was written to be brought up against a group of adventurers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's specifically like with evasion and uncanny dodge. That's not really something I think of as a player when I'm attacking enemies, on whether or not they have uncanny dodge or evasion. That sounds definitely like a party of monks and rogues and things of that sort that are going to be doing that shit, right? So again, it's like, how do I, as a DM, put this into a story? How do I put this into a module? How do I make sense that all of these things are happening?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard. I can see what I guess I can kind of see what they want from it, but when you're making something this incredibly versatile, powerful, everything, it's like it feels like it's not meant to have an equal. Like, imagine the party does take this up and just smacks the BBEG in the face with it. Mm-hmm. Like, all of its stuff just won't work, right? All the magic you have BBEG just won't work, like it feels like it's when you were talking about High Point in its beginning times and you had certain items that were potentially too powerful, like this feels like that.
Exactly. And maybe that's kind of why I have those same things. Like, I've been there. I've made the items that just, in the end of the day, they sounded cooler than they are. You know what I mean? And that's
fair enough.
What happens, right? I mean, I attribute it to the same thing of like, I feel like many kids did this, where at some point you try to create your own superhero. Like, whether it's just in your imagination, or you wrote up a comic book, or you wrote a story, or you just drew up a character image and thought about what it can do. And more often than not, you ended up just picking like the best powers from your favorite superheroes instead of either being original or being creative in the sense of what I could accomplish with powers. It was just more of a, he's bulletproof and he can punch people, over buildings, and he can fly and he's super fast. Like, you're just picking the things that solve grand problems without, thinking of the boundaries, right? Spider-Man with his actual like built, mechanical web that needs replacing. Otherwise he can't actually web swing, right? Mm-hmm. His real only, like, one of his only powers is wall climbing, strength, spider sense. Mm-hmm. That's about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't really have a whole lot of other powers. Like, the other stuff he does is his ability to use what he has, right? Mm-hmm. He created the webbing in order to solve a problem and in order to advance what else he could do, because he was already agile, he could see better, you know what I mean? Like, he had the ability to like benefit off of the idea of having a web, but that wasn't something that he had. So I feel like a lot of the times when you do things like this, it's also not just looking at it from the player and the DM perspective, but again, that in-game lore. Why did someone build this? How were they building it? what was the purpose of it, right? Because at the end of the day, it just feels like, again, it's very specifically used against a party that it's expecting to go up against.
Fair enough.
Ooh, Walepa says could split the item into two, and having like either two different items or two different like abilities on either side of it. That could be interesting.
I like that idea.
All right, so
that idea.
It also has melee options. So this is also interesting because, again, it was a staff focused more on a spellcasting focus, but we do have a melee option.
Okay.
So if you use this staff as a melee weapon, its reach is 5 feet. So does that...
I feel like that's
kind of redundant to say, right? Because melee range is 5 feet, but reach usually indicates you can go further, but this doesn't... That's not what this is saying. It's not saying that I can hit someone 10 feet away.
I don't think so. Because, okay, I will say in a lot of stat blocks, for whatever reason, when you're reading like melee attack, it'll say reach 5 feet.
Interesting.
I am not 100% sure why, but they are melee. They are very much melee.
Okay,
attacks.
so I think this is indicating
5 feet is indicative of melee.
Okay, so this is just a holdover from 5th edition. Weird. Okay.
5th edition terminology.
So we use intelligence or religion for its attack and damage modifier. It deals 1d8 plus your intelligence modifier as magical bludgeoning damage.
Does that mean if you're not proficient in religion, then you don't get your proficiency bonus on this?
Sounds like it, because it uses religion for its attack and damage modifier, or for its attack and damage modifier. It has a 1d8 plus your intelligence modifier as magical bludgeoning, and 1d8 plus your intelligence modifier as special necrotic damage, specifically as a corrupt or tainted form of radiant, so necrotic resistance or immunity is ignored. Again,
you know what's wild? The only class that would really be able to benefit from your intelligence modifier like that can't use this. A wizard.
Yeah.
Or an artificer.
Right.
Because the other ones are charisma casters or wisdom casters.
That's 100% true. Yeah. It's usually so then additionally, the creature hit by the staff needs to make a charisma saving throw against being charmed, flavored as form of unholy mind control. This ignores any resistance or immunity to the charm condition. A creature charmed by this unholy mind control can re-roll their saving throw each time they take damage from any source, any of the condition on themselves or success. So again, this is just a bully club. I mean, it kind of sucks because you're right. None of the people that would be using this are going to benefit from it. It's 2d8 plus twice your intelligence modifier.
Religious damage.
And what's that? Religious damage. But my biggest thing here is, so this special necrotic damage, I'm not a huge fan of trying to add too much that doesn't already exist outside of it. Like, I mean, it's a homebrew, right? But calling it special necrotic damage, and then again, specifically being like, oh, well, I have resistance to necrotic. Well, this is special. You don't get that resistance. It's like, you don't want them to have fun with this. You want them to suffer. You just basically want your players to not have any reason that this isn't going to hurt them. I want to hit you. I want to cast a spell at you. And I don't want you to do the same thing to me. That's what this feels like, to be completely honest. Like, this thing just doesn't want you to do anything. And then it hits you and you have no way to resist it. Even if your character was built around not being able to be charmed. Doesn't matter. You're going to get charmed from this. And then it says unholy mind control. So is this a god tier weapon? Did a god... Again, I need, like, none of this is really making a lot of sense for what else it can do. Because first it was anti-magic, then it was boosting magic, and now it's mind control and anti-radiant. It's doing too much. It's asking to be too much, because we talked about it, and it's supposed to be from evil people, right? So this thing is supposed to be wielded by an evil person, but outside of this special necrotic damage, nothing in this has been evil. Like, there's mass heal, there's divine word. I'm not getting evil from this. You know what I mean? I'm not understanding why it specifically requires an evil character, and why it specifically would require a warlock, a cleric specifically of trickery, or an oathbreaker. Like, none of that really makes a lot of sense. And so I'm wondering, like, where does this must all fit in very, very specifically with Cosmic's lore. But the downside of that is it makes it super difficult for someone else to be able to modify this for themselves, right? Like, a lot of these things just don't make a whole lot of sense for why someone would have come in. And again, this is so powerful. A couple things. First off, like you said, why isn't this the BBEG's right-hand man at all times? Why isn't the BBEG carrying this thing?
Oh yeah.
And
screw my little dude, give me this.
And then on top of that, think about this. This is one of his general's weapons. What does the BBEG fucking do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if this already feels like a bully fight where I'm not supposed to be able to easily do this. This feels like a fight that it was designed to make sure the party doesn't just easily get by,
up.
right? Like I want this to be difficult. What does that tell you as a player for what the BBEG fight would be? It doesn't give me hope and interest. Like, to be honest, this feels so like, and again, now let's put this in the hands of the party, right? The party's going to be able to charm anybody. Literally just
BBEG.
one
Be
melee
like, hey,
attack, boom, you're charmed. I know it's only like, I know charm's pretty limited, but it's still going to be like, oh, you can't attack me. You just don't attack me, bud. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems that being able to charm any creature that you hit with this is going to be a lot. Again, think about like the party. Anybody who gets within melee damage of the wielder of this is now, again, not going to attack. So until they take damage, and again, if that's the only one you're fighting, or he can command everybody else,
it just sounds like, can the monk get in there and stun him before he can get hit once with the staff?
Oh yeah, because this is going to stop the monk from doing. Yeah, because then the monk would stop hitting him, and no one's going to attack your party to make him deal damage in order to knock him out of it, and then he's just going to get hit with staff again. So again, it sounds like too many. It does feel like too many avenues were looked at to block, and it feels like this is a punishment. It feels like this fight is designed to punish the party. I don't feel like this is a challenge so much as I do. Like, it's the same thing that I equate with video games. I've said this before. I'm not a fan when video games say, oh, we're going to up the difficulty now that you beat the game. Let's up the difficulty. And all they do is double the enemy's hit points and halve the amount of damage you do, or double the amount of damage you take. But it's the exact same game. It's just that it takes to all you're doing is making the game longer. If they don't act different, it's not more challenging. It just means I have to do the thing I did before just 3 times longer.
Yeah.
I have to follow the pattern 3 times longer. Every boss has the same pattern. Just because he takes 3 times longer to kill doesn't really make it more challenging. It just makes me take longer. It just makes sure that I have the pattern.
You have to be perfect for longer.
And to me, that is not more of a challenge. To me, that's just a time sake. I would much rather have the enemies like act different or do something. So with this, I'm trying to think of, I'm level 15, level 16. We're getting close to the BBEG fight. We've been, working through this campaign for a while. We're going up against this guy. The wizard's out because none of his spells are landing and doing just minimal damage, just guaranteed half damage at best. Let's say you have a monk, goes up, gets charmed. Boom, well, the monk's out, right? And again, if this is the only person, you could probably like surround him. But again, everything under 5th level spells, like you mentioned before, a couple fireballs is going to take care of half the party right there. Your cleric's probably going to go down. Your wizard's probably going to go down.
Because they're going to fail and they're going to take whatever damage you rolled.
I mean, they have to fail. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, and with the defensive, it's just like none of your magic's going to work, and you're going to have been so primed to know that magic is your best feature, right? And think about this. This is probably not going to be the most random of fights. So there's a good chance we're going to have saved our best abilities for this fight. It's not the BBG fight, but we probably worked up to it.
Sure.
And what are our best abilities? All of our magical shit. And we're going to blow our load in the first 2 rounds, and everything's going to do nothing. And then we're going to be stuck there having used up our best abilities now against someone who is basically just going to, stomp on us with magical attacks that we can't dodge, but we can't reciprocate. And then it's going to be basically a melee attack, but all it takes is a good couple rolls from the DM and everyone's charmed, and the game's over. It's just it feels like this was built. It was over-engineered. Again, it's not like it's a bad item. It's just over-engineered. It really does come across like you were trying to think of every way that a party has overcome a battle, and you try to put it in this one item to make sure that the party has to go through this without any cutting corners. and for
Interesting.
and for me, I don't find that. For me personally, I would not find that energy. I would find this as basically you're removing what makes the party special. You're removing the magic, the damage that we can deal via magic. So you're basically removing the spellcasters, right? Again, the monk, the paladin, the fighter can all be charmed. It's like you're punishing everybody for doing what they do best. You're punishing the mages for having magic. You're punishing the melee people for getting too close. It's like, you know, this is the only other thing that can fight this thing is a ranger that's hidden in shadows. You know what I mean? It's just, it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like the lore would make sense that this is what we're fighting. And if it does, it just makes me very worried about the BBEG and how much harder that's going to be.
That's very fair. That's very fair. It's this feels crazy scary. This feels like it would take an army to combat, and some level 20 melee fighters that don't use magic weapons ever. Like I don't know. So it's I'm very curious where this fits. Like, again, if you want to create something like this, if you want to build something like this, like, it's possible, but like placing it in a place that you can actually feel like you can use it, right?
That's the harder part.
Like, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you know, this could be one of those things where if you did a good job at making your party very well aware that this was upcoming and you had an ability to maybe, you know, remove it or destroy it before the fight.
Theoretically,
so kind of like one of those situations.
Each one of these things says while holding the staff. The second somebody disarms this motherfucker.
Yeah, there's the disarm. I mean, Cosmic put in the chat that, you know, while they would have advantage on their saving throw, you could just banish it. But again, if you need something like banishment to overcome something, it's like...
So banishment would work. I can cast spells.
Well, because, yeah, it's a little bit weird because it says magical effects can't be activated. I'm assuming that means by the weapon or, you know, when you're... Because, again, we know that that's when you're getting attacked. But spell attacks against you have disadvantage. And you have advantage on saving throws. So if someone casts banish on you, it's technically able... But you still have advantage on the saving throw. But again, it's like, I could cast banish on anybody. I don't think that's a worthwhile argument against why something could be OP, agreed. Right? It's like, well, if you could, it's like saying, it's like, well, I should just have 2 Tarrasques as pets. You could just banish them. So it's not a problem that I have 2 of them as pets. Even though there's only supposed to be 1, I mean, you could just banish one of them and then you're back to the one that, you know, is normal. You know, I don't find that as a good enough to look at this and go, oh, well, that justifies it. Because again, it's very situational. You have to have the caster still have that particular spell, and it has to go off for it to even matter. Otherwise, you're back to exactly the same problems that we were thinking of before. Dispel magic on the item. I don't know if that would work. Like, I don't know how dispel magic, how powerful it is in 5th edition. An anti-magic field would be very interesting. I'm wondering if you could cast anti-magic field, and if this thing would.
Real quick, I did want to mention that Path of the Totem Barbarian. I love them specifically for this. Path of the Bear has resistance to all damage except sight, which would include this weird radiant.
Interesting.
Because it's not saying you're resistant to necrotic damage.
It's just all damage.
It's saying I'm resistant to all damage besides sight.
So that's a very, very
niche,
specific way that you could overcome this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, there are ways that you could do it, but again, a lot of those would be
dispel magic. That's what I was thinking.
Either those are going to have to be again well thought out. I mean, again, you know, it's going to be luck if you choose that particular path of a barbarian in this campaign, right? Like you don't know about the item until you run into it. So that's a niche situation that would be beneficial and you would luck out. But I don't know.
This casting spell magic on this, if you were to put a spell level on this staff, what spell level would you put?
I mean, it's basically like it's acting like it's god tier. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is definitely upwards of 7th, 8th, or 9th level minimum.
So Dispel Magic says for each spell level above 4th, or higher on the target, make an ability check using your spell casting DC, and your DC equals 10 plus the spell's level. So in this particular case, if it's a 9th level spell, your DC would be a 19.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, again, it has so many different things. It's like, it's not just one spell either. Like, it does so much. You could call this, 9 different level 7 spells.
Yeah.
So if you cast a spell magic, does it all go away? Does only one thing go away?
That would be interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so difficult because I don't know how 5th edition, like 2nd edition has all this figured out in terms of enchantments. All of this is answered. Everything comes down to how it was enchanted and who made it and everything. So, that's the other aspect, is I just have a hard time understanding how one item can do all of this and how that makes sense. Caleb has a question. What is the item made of? If it's metal, you could simply use a big magnet, or heat metal. That would be interesting. I mean, it's a staff. I would assume it's wood.
Yeah.
But there's those things. Having an immunity to dispel magic would be great. Yeah. Okay. And so let's continue. I think we get the curse next. Okay. So here we go. So let's talk about the curse. While attuned to the staff, all other magic items on your person, including the staff itself, including other attuned items, lose their magic while retaining their attunement to you, and you cannot willingly unattune from them. Any non-attunement based magic items regain their magical properties 24 hours after they've been removed from your person. Additionally, whenever you cast a leveled spell, your maximum hit points is reduced by the spell's level. Greater Restoration has no effect on this specific form of max HP reduction, and Remove Curse has no effect on the staff, as the divine entity that provides the staff with its power refuses to let its curse to be removed by any means. The only way to remove the attunement to the staff is to kill the divine entity connected to it. If done successfully, there is nothing left to resist the curse removal attempts. Again, there's so much going on with this. It's just, there's just so much. It's so complex. Okay, so so while attuned, all other magic items on your person. So basically, this is the only magic item you can wield, period. Everything that is magical is not magical anymore. Everything that you're attuned to now becomes unattuned. Like, you can't unattune to anything that you've previously had. So I don't get the punishment there. I've seen Cosmic. I've seen you do this before. I'm not really understanding this like big punishment of, well, you had all these attuned items and you attuned to this, so now I killed all your other attuned items. Like, I'm not a big fan of that punishment. And it honestly sounds like a punishment because it's not the first item that we've seen that does it. And again, those things are usually not what you know until you attune to it. So I don't really understand that, but I get the idea of like, you siphon all of the magic off of anything else, kind of like that's what makes the shield. I like that everything gets their magical properties back, but after 24 hours, you know what I mean? Like, again, what is this thing doing? It's like, it can zap a weapon for a minute, but anything you were wearing is for a whole day. And then whenever you cast a leveled spell, your max HP is reduced. I would never want this. This isn't just a curse. Again,
talk about the significant downside, like all that god tier stuff.
But it doesn't fit though, and I don't necessarily think this is a balancing maneuver, right? Like, you're basically saying, hold this and no one can really touch you with magic, but don't do magic yourself, otherwise you'll die. Like, it's literally, it's like, I don't get the purpose of it.
You can never get you that health back.
Yeah, it's like, I don't, yeah, and then you can never get the health back. So the moment this goes on a party member, it's kind of like, well, sucks to be that character. Go kill this god now. It's like, this is a plot device. It's more of a plot device than anything else, which means for me, I would really hope that any DM using this would have a lot of opportunities to learn about this and not randomly throw this in. Because this is quite a bit. And I don't know as a DM how I feel about the type of creature that's going to hold on to this, like the NPC, because how is that fight going to look? It's like, unless you give it something that has a shit ton of health, its greatest thing is like casting magic, but are you going to have an entire fight where it's basically just running from the party because it doesn't want to cast magic, because if it does, it's going to die? Because at some point it's going to have to not cast magic anymore because it's just going to be low health. It's a very weird way to play. And if you're not telling your players about this and you let one of your players attune to it, it sounds like, I know that curse is supposed to be a bad thing, but it's not supposed to be a punishment for the players to obviously be curious about a powerful item. You know what I mean? But again, it's like fighting this thing feels like it's punishing those for doing what they do best. And then it turns around and punishes the character even, or the player even more for doing what players do best, which is loot. Like it one thing after another, this feels more like a punishment than anything else.
I feel like you want them to like crave after these things. Like, yeah, man, like I don't think I could use it with that. Like, it would be cool to like hold on to it and like have it for strictly defensive. Like all the other abilities other than casting spells are still really good, but still, like, would I really want to?
But then what are you for the party? Like again, because if you're an Oathbreaker Paladin, a Trickery Cleric, or a Warlock, what are you once you have this thing if you don't cast your magic, right? Like you're literally even less likely to cast any magic. You're just likely to be very reserved, even more so.
Cantrips?
I don't know.
Technically, there's 0 level spells.
So I guess you could call, yeah, because it does say leveled spells, so cantrips are fine.
Okay.
But that's just the thing. It's like you basically got this thing purely for defensive purposes, but you again are getting punished for being a spellcaster. Like I could understand maybe a paladin using this because every time they hit with it, they charm the person and they get a bunch of defensive. But the cleric can.
I mean, you expend a spell slot. Is defense smite a spell?
I don't think it's considered a spell unless in 24 it is. But I'm just thinking like outside of that, you're punishing the cleric and the warlock for picking this up. You know what I mean? Like. And not just because it's a curse, but like it's just a punishment for the player. It's to me, there's not enough here to justify that. Oh well, that's what happens. You picked up a curse item and there's a downside. But like this isn't just a downside. You basically, without telling the player, you basically lock them out of doing what they want to do, unless they turn around and play the suicide, kamikaze character, where they're just like, all right, BBG fight. I'm casting every spell I know because I'm gonna die anyway. And it's just like, that's kind of messed up if you don't have a player who's knowing that. So with the curse, let's try to break this down a little bit. So while attuned to it, you can't use any other magic items. Just any magic items that you basically put on your person, you obtain. Gone.
Magic's dead.
Magic's dead.
Now, I would say you got a bag of holding on you. That stuff is
yeah, the bag of holding's dead. 100%. Because that's the thing about it, they lose their magical properties, it'll get it back. But when a bag of holding stops becoming a bag of holding,
24 hours.
But when it lost its magic, yeah, it dumps. As far as I'm concerned, it dumps. Now, what it doesn't say is that it says while attuned, all of the magic items on your person lose their magic. So this also presents very interesting complications. Let's say there's a ward on a door. If I go touch the door, is it in my possession? Like, what are we talking about as in possession? If you come and attack me and I just simply reach out and touch your sword, is your sword no longer magical for 24 hours?
Well,
can I just touch things? So while attuned to the staff, all magic items on your person, including other attuned items, lose their magic while retaining attunement, and you cannot willingly unattune. It says all magic items on your person, including other attuned. And then it goes on to say,
grab like a doorknob, is that
so it says, any non-attunement based magic item regains magical properties 24 hours after they've been removed from your person. So how are we defining on your person? If I just touch a magical item, like if I just touched your sword, is it no longer magical? Or do I have to take it off of you completely? Unsheath, hold it individually. Like at what point does it become a magical item I'm touching?
Yeah.
Because again, the staff, as long as I'm wielding it, anything that attacks me becomes non-magical for 1 minute. But if I turn around and just touch it and it's on my person, I can turn it off for 24 hours. So that those don't match up. Why is all of these things get shut off once they leave me for 24 hours, but anything that just grazes me is only for a minute? Like, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't quite match up for me. I would like to see that make a little bit more sense. But again, I would think that what you were saying is that, like, when attuned, I would say that all of the other attuned ones get killed. Because what I would hate is that this means that what if I only had one other attunement item? You're basically saying I can't have attunement anymore. I wouldn't mind it that as a punishment, still a punishment, that when I attune with it, anything I'm currently attuned to de-attunes. That's fine. Or you know, loses its magic. But in the future, I still should be able to attune to a new item if I still had an availability.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking, right?
Interesting.
Or at bare minimum, when you attune to this item, it forces all other items currently attuned to you to be unattuned, and you can't attune any new item. Like, shut me off from attunement, fine. But I just literally locking all of those attunements just doesn't. I don't understand the idea of why that is entertaining. I feel like, again, that's a player punishment. That's basically, it feels like you just want to laugh at them and be like, ha, sucks, 4 items gone. Who wants that? What player is going to do that and be like, it was worth it? You know what I mean? It just, it takes so much to take your attunement items, especially if you've had a couple. But then it's, you know, it's this constant, like, I would change it to, at the time of attunement, either all current attunements are locked, you know, all those magic items go away, but then you can reattune later, like to a new item if you still have room, or it just kicks all attunements off and you can't attune to anything else, right? Like, because then those items are still items, they're still used for somebody else. I can go sell them. Just, I don't like the idea of locking them away. So I would change that, either just kick all the other items off of you, or it only locks what you currently have and you can still gain more. That's the first change I would make. The second one is, I don't mind that any magic item that was on you at the time of attunement loses magic for 24 hours. That's fine. You know, at the time of doing so, that narratively makes sense. I don't mind that while you have the staff attuned, you can't use magic items. I'm okay with that.
Sure.
You know, you pick up magic, you know, like armor, and you put it on, it loses its magic, right?
Give you the magical bone.
Yeah, I'm okay saying that because I'm attuned to it, I can't have other attunements, and I can't use magical items. And anything that was current that I had on my person when I attuned to it is demagnetized or demagicked for 24 hours. Those are all fine. But this ongoing, I obtain something magical and it just becomes unmagical. Like, again, it's too much, and then it begs too much questions of what is considered in my possession.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would just clean that up a little bit, and then
I agree.
The casting a leveled spell constantly reducing your max hit points, I would be fine with it if it wasn't permanent. As in, I can't get my hit points back in any way. You know what I mean? It's because again, it's just like, you know, remove curse doesn't work, greater restoration doesn't work, and I have to go kill a god.
Yeah.
Like, it from a playing point of view,
maybe it doesn't have to be like every long rest you get it back, but maybe.
Well, I wouldn't mind it being a permanent loss, but like, unless I get greater restoration, like that's still a hefty ask.
Sure.
To be able to go get that. You know what I mean? So having to, you know, re-up that isn't a bad thing, you know, and it gives you a little bit more of the, well, maybe I'll go a little bit more Rambo this time because we have one of those scrolls, you know, on standby. But maybe on another fight, you don't have one of those scrolls on standby, so you don't go Rambo, right? I could feel that being a little bit better, but yeah, the idea that it's just a guaranteed permanent loss, it's like, again, if you don't know that this is coming, this is a fundamental shift to your character.
Yeah.
And I just don't see a lot of players getting any benefit from this. I just, again, fighting like a major enemy with this and then obtaining it, I'm having a hard time from a player mindset looking at that and going, this was worth it, right? A lot of this just feels like the fight's gonna feel a little bit like we're being bullied, and then having it on again. If I didn't know anything about this item, and for all intents and purposes, yeah, I'm honestly, I'm not sure I'm gonna really enjoy my character anymore. It's gonna kind of feel like my character was taken from me. And that's my only thing is like, and again, from a DM point of view, there's just so much to keep track of. Like everything that gave us something gave us like 3 things. You know what I mean? So there's just there's so much going on, and that's why I feel like I said, it feels like if you're gonna run this, I would not be surprised if a DM ran this and a player at some point basically called them out and being like, so are we supposed to win? Because I mean, think about it. It's like, oh, I do this, well, he has resistance. Well, I do this, oh, he has advantage on that. Oh, well, he casts fireball. Oh, well, I do my saving throw, there's no saving throw. Well, at least I got uncanny dodge, there's no uncanny dodge. Like, how many times is this item going to do that before someone at the gaming table is going to be like, are we supposed to win this? Like, is this just, are we supposed to die? Because how many of those things are going to happen to where it's like, the fuck? Literally everything we do, it doesn't work. And that's my only thing. You know, all of those powerful weapons they're like, oh yeah, your magical 2 sword for 1 minute, it's not magical anymore, but you still have minions to kill. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's gonna be a feels bad man fight. Oh, yeah. And then again, if you hit them with all of this curse without any warning, what warlock is gonna have, you know, like what warlock's gonna be looking forward to that BBEG fight? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Without having to be able to go all out on their, I mean, like you said, they're basically going to be stuck to their cantrips. So yeah, they might as well become a ranger at that point. Like, so yeah, that's my biggest thing. There's a lot going on with this. It's complex, it's complicated, and it feels very situational. I don't know how, like, again, without knowing more about Cosmic's intention and the fight, because again, we don't know who's going to wield this. Like, I feel like this is definitely best suited for whatever campaign he has planned for this. But when it comes to being able to have anybody pick this up, it's just too powerful and it's too complicated. Like, it probably works great for the situation it was designed for, but it definitely feels like this was designed for a situation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it definitely feels like this has intent, this has purpose, and while that purpose in that situation probably makes a whole lot of sense, because we know how you know, like, expansive Cosmic's world is. We know the layers that he's put into the lore. I'm sure all of that would make it make more sense. But trying to look at this as I'm thumbing through, you know, the 5e24 handbook and looking for some new magical items, you know, I'm looking through the next Cautious Cauldron, and I come across this, I'm going to be very confused as a DM on how to integrate it. I'm going to be worried as a player. My DM's going to think it's too OP to use. And I have a feeling that more often than not, a player in their hands, it's just going to get confusing on what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be more reading than there is, I use my staff for this. It's going to be so I'm going to use my staff, and then it's going to do this, and then do they get hit? Okay, so if they get hit, you know what I mean? It's going to be a lot of that. And even from the DM's point of view, I don't see the combat flowing very easily. Okay. Yeah, especially, I'm assuming that you're also going to have minions, right? This isn't going to be a 1v, you know, it's a 1v5 fight. So it's just, I feel like this is going to bog down the fight more than the actual combat itself. And then we have a little bit more here. So we do have a little bit more lore. So the meaning of jurisdiction. So a legal authority to enact justice, or the range of judicial, law enforcement, or other authority. It can also refer to the area within a government entity or court system has authority to set and a set of laws. I like that he's adding this, but to be honest, it's only making it even more confusing. Like, the abilities are only more confusing with that definition.
Like, are you trying to say, like, that can stop the laws of magic from functioning or something? Like,
it's like nothing that I felt, because again, this is also an evil item. Like, it's not really about enforcing laws or
it'd make more sense
like
to
justice.
Be a lawful alignment.
Yeah, it doesn't really have anything to do with justice or anything else like that. So I'm kind of confused on that particular, you know, that angle.
Why that choice?
So Apocrypha, biblical or related writings not forming part of the accepted canon of Scripture, writings or reports not considered genuine. Given the context and information, it sounds like a perfect pair of words for a weapon meant for a cleric. I don't feel like this is meant for a cleric, to be honest.
With the exception of the religious requirement in one of the things.
Yeah.
Where you uses your religion modifier to do your attack rolls. Like,
right.
Outside of that.
That said, the same could be true for any holy caster, which is why paladins can attune to the staff as well, but only oath-breaking paladins. Mm-hmm. And oath breakers really aren't I mean, they're holy, but they're not really. They're. It's funny. I find like the new paladins are less holy and more righteous, because oaths are more righteous based and less divine, holy.
Yeah.
They're not religious anymore. Paladins are no longer religious. So for me, it's like saying that, you know, we want this to be. It's like the intent is to make this a divine, godlike item, but again, it's not. It doesn't come together to paint that picture. As for warlocks, it could just be a trap from a chaotic or evil patron as a lure for power, but its curse twists things more to the evil side, which is why trigger cleric, oathbreaker, paladin is required. So again, though, like it makes it seem like, again, it's being written as if this is designed to be something that could have just been in a war. But again, the idea of an evil being punishing a paladin who's an oathbreaker, like, again, it's kind of contradictory in its own nature. It's like it's trying to say that it's from like a divine being of justice and law enforcement, but it only wants to give it to evil people that have already broken the law, but it's punishing them for breaking the law by making them super power. Like, there's just a lot of things that I'm having a hard time putting this together as in a way that I could sell it in outside of just, hey, here's a really powerful item. I'm having a hard time selling this. Note that this is an item wielded by a corrupt priest. There we go. Finally, we get a little bit of understanding here. That works for the BBEG. The wielder is a member of the evil party as their healer. So this gives us a little bit more of understanding. So this is essentially a cleric, a healer cleric that wields this. That's interesting. So okay, so here's how my brain works, right? Here's how I start to look at that. Now that we knew that, I have a whole different viewpoint on how this thing should work, because it's designed to be a healing cleric, right? So kind of first off, what I'm thinking is what the curse should be is, let's scrap any leveled spell and let's put it into I would say, yeah, scrap the part about all leveled spells take your max HP, and I would lean in on the healing aspect of it. If this is supposed to be for a priest that's like the BBG's healer, make it to where the curse is in not every leveled spell, but any leveled healing spell. So anytime you heal someone, you lose max HP. And instead of rolling for it, like if you can do a spell that gives,
I like that.
Let's say you do a spell that does 3d8 healing. Instead of rolling 3d8 and you lose that much max HP and they gain that much, you get to choose. If you cast a spell that's up to 3d8, you get to choose up to 3d8 worth. So if you want to do 1, you want to do 8, you want to do 16, you want to do 20.
However much you heal,
but whatever you give, that would be the fucking brilliant part of this curse, is let it be intended for healers, but at their own sacrifice.
That would also explain why the BBEG doesn't use it.
Why the BBG doesn't use it, why he's evil. Imagine that could make perfect sense why it's Oath Paladins. Because it's a punishment that they are trying to, they're trying to basically atone for it. Atone for it. So guess what? They have to take their own health in order to give to people. That, again, this, all we needed was that little bit of lore to make this make more sense and to give better constructive criticism. That right there would be my biggest change to the curse. It's not every leveled spell. Give it to where anytime they cast any healing, instead of rolling for it, they get to choose up to the max that the dice would say. But that's how much they have to lose in permanent HP.
Would you also say that it's permanent, and or would you give it the greater restoration?
I would still say greater restoration should heal it, because it would make for a better approachable item. Now, granted, in situation, I get why it should be permanent in cosmic setting, and it's not overall the worst decision to do that. But I think if you wanted this item to be more acceptable and more accessible to everyone, then I think that's what you would want to do. I think you would want to get rid of it so people could essentially do that whole thing where they can sacrifice a whole bunch, but eventually get greater restoration and eventually recoup.
Okay.
But that's still an adventure. That's still something that they have to
I will
go
say
out.
Greater Restoration does have a gold fee. It's not much. It's 100 GP worth of diamond dust, but
That's fine.
still.
Like I said, like it's that idea of giving them something to actually have to go do is fine, right? Like adventure for, because easily I could just say Greater Restoration only happens at temples. That's the only place that you can get those. That's easy for a DM to do that. To be like, oh, it's a 3-day adventure for you to go get your Greater Restoration healing. So it's a detour, right? It's something that they have to go earn instead of just sleeping it off. So right off the bat, if that's our lore, that's one of the biggest things I would change to the curse is healing is what removes your permanent HP. And I still don't mind the anti-magic effects as long as they're rewritten. I don't mind it either detuning anything that you had attuned and it won't let you reattune anything.
Right.
Either that, or anything currently attuned loses its magic and can't be taken off, but any open slots can still be used.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to shut again, if I only have one attuned item and then I get this thing, I don't want to be shut off from the other 3 attuned items I can have. That feels too bad. But not knowing that I'm going to lose the one item, or you attune to the staff and all of a sudden your helm pops off and your bracelet pops off and all your other attuned items just fall to the ground. Cinematically, that would be cool too. You'd be like, oh well, cool. You'd be fucked. And you wouldn't feel bad because at least this way now, if you know that there's a chance to get rid of this, you keep your items so you can get those back later. Like,
right.
I'm okay with that. So that's how I would change it. I would change the loss of attunement to either just detune everything and you can't attune again, or you only lose the things that were before you. I don't mind magical items on you losing magic for 24 hours when you first attune. I don't mind that cinematically. And I don't mind if while attuned you cannot use magic items. Those are things I'd be okay with the curse.
Right.
Not
okay.
What we're seeing here with basically if I pick something up, it stops being magic. Because again,
you could use that aggressively in so many ways.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that's how I would change the curse. And I think that that would make the curse better. Looking at offensive, you get Divine Word. What's Divine Word? Is that a healing spell? Because we know Mass Heal. And again, dude, can you think about how devastating Mass Heal would ever... Like, you get it for free, but you have to have the life in order to give it up. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, that would be fucking dope to be able to do. And I would even be okay if you were if the spell, like if you wanted to put in some verbiage where when the spell gives temp HP, you only lose active HP. So if I give you 5 HP, I take 5 hit points of damage, where if I give you 5 health, I lose 5 permanent HP.
Gotcha.
So temp HP only hurts me, actual HP drains me.
Gotcha.
So I wouldn't even mind that, right? Like a small little
cool.
change. And you said you were looking up Divine Word?
Yeah, so it says you utter a divine word imbued with power that shaped the worlds at the dawn of creation. Choose any number of creatures you can see within range. Each creature that can hear you must make a charisma saving throw. On a failed save, a creature suffers an effect based upon its current hit points. 50 hit points or lower, it's deafened. 40 hit points or lower, it's blinded. 30 hit points or lower, it's blinded and deafened and stunned for an hour.
Jesus.
And 20 hit points or lower.
And that's everybody. So that's not even just enemies. That's just anybody that can hear you.
Yeah. But it does say at the beginning, choose any number of creatures you can see within range.
Okay. So it is.
That's confusing, because once I choose those number of creatures within range, then it says everyone that can hear me. What if those creatures I chose can't hear me for whatever reason? Maybe they're deafened already. Maybe whatever the case may be.
Well, again, that's the idea. Is I think it's just indicating that you can choose any number of creatures, aka not your target, not your allies, and they have to be able to hear you.
Okay.
So I think it's just saying that it's trying to separate out that you don't have to hit your allies, but they still have to be able to hear you. So, okay, so those are fine. Like, I think that, adding those to the staff, that's really fine. The staff can have its own thing. I think Mass Heal is kind of very tricky, especially if you're going to do the whole, giving up your own life points. And again, I think you could just do that with the offensive side. Just give it those two, and then up to here. That would have been fine there. I think this is what we said that could honestly just come off. In terms of the melee side of things, it's interesting that you have. So now that I'm thinking about it too, especially with the idea of the healer, what would be really interesting is if you change the melee to where this second form of damage is actually like life stealing. So you do 1d8 plus your intelligence modifier bludgeoning, and then you do 1d8 plus your intelligence modifier as this special damage, and you gain your intelligence modifier back in like permanent HP. So this is like the other way you would be able to replenish it. So as kind of that duality of the curse, you give life to your allies, and in order to replenish it, you have to get up close and personal and put yourself at risk again. Kind of even goes more into the idea of a paladin having to regain their or reatone for that. So that's how I would do it. I would change melee into the extra damage being how I get my life back. I would just change spellcasting into these two new spells and then just drop all of this. Kage, I want you to hear this. I think I'm fixing more of it now that I understand the lore behind it. So with spellcasting, just drop all of this stuff. Drop the the guaranteed failed saves and the no uncanny dodge, right?
Okay.
Just give it the two spells for free. Like just give it, maybe even give it a third spell, right? For the spellcasting. For melee, how about this? It can do the two types of damage. So imagine if the staff did 1d8 plus your intelligence modifier bludgeoning, and then did an additional either 1d8 or just an additional damage, like intelligence modifier damage. But this additional damage replenished your max HP. So the idea, especially if you think of it from like an Oathbreaker Paladin having to reatone, the idea is that anytime you use this as a healing spell, you're going to give up HP, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to give up your max HP every time you heal. So the only way to get it back is you have to put yourself at personal danger, at personal risk, to be up close and personal. And if you melee attack, you get, say, your intelligence modifier in terms of that damage that you deal, you get that back as permanent HP. So it's the only way to replenish.
I like that.
Is to be, so kind of think about the paladin.
Like that.
You have to be a paladin, so go help people, go heal people at your own risk. But then in order to get that health back, put yourself at more risk. Like just that or again, a warlock is usually a distance fighter. So the punishment, for a warlock is get up close and personal if you want your life back. If you want to keep casting magic at a distance, you're going to have to once in a while get up close and personal in order to face them off, right? A cleric, same thing. They're usually not up close and personal. So this is that whole thing of prove your worth and you can stay alive. If you're just going to abuse me as the staff, right? The idea is if you're just going to abuse me for my power, I'm just going to take from you. But if you prove that you're not just, a weakling and you can get up in there, I'll let you live and continue to use me. So that
interesting.
I like that.
I like these vibes.
So I'm thinking that would be a much better way to do melee, because then you could do the whole thing where just say that it does 2d6 or 2d8 plus your intelligence modifier damage. And whenever you do damage in this way, you gain your intelligence modifier back in HP up to your previous max. So just, again, this is the only way to get your life back is to get up close and personal, but it makes you feel more like you could be the healing Rambo. You could use that mass heal a little bit more, towards the end of the fight, you just back off, do mass heal and be like, guys, I got 10 HP. I'm out. I literally have total 10 HP, but then later down the road, there's some minions. You can just sit there and smack on some minions later and get your health back.
It feels like depending on like what you do, you can like almost like force them back into like a corner, type deal, and like you can use some strategy, like especially with a feature like that and potentially giving them an opportunity to know this ahead of time. They can plan a strategy to kind of try and get him to use his HP so that he's like almost down, and so that you don't have to necessarily use all your magic on him. You can find another way to
get him to stop using his magic. And the cool part about this is, again, I'm talking about your max HP, not healing. So it's not healing you just because you hit someone.
Right.
It's just increasing your max. So if you have 50 out of 60, but your original max was 100,
You still have 50
and you did
60.
10 points of damage, it'll put you to 70, but you still have 50 hit points. You didn't go to 60 out of 70.
Now
You
could
just
heal
went,
yourself.
huh?
You could heal yourself, but you'd also be taken away from your max HP.
Oh, and that would be the coolest part, because yes, you can heal yourself, but
Meet
you
it in the middle.
So I'm now that I understand, again, just knowing
That's
the
wild.
individual that was supposed to wield
That's
this
wild.
is giving me much better vibes as how it should be working, right? So again, the curse, in my opinion, based off of who should be wielding this, should be more focused on you heal and lose HP, lose max HP for healing people. I think that right there is a much better curse. And then of course the attunement in the magical items. Your spell casting, give me 3 spells. Ditch all of this about the saving throws and just give me 3 spells. Give me mass heal, give me another good healing one, and then give me divine word, right? I mean, hell, if you really want to have some fun, give me power word kill or something. You know what I mean? Just for shits and giggles. But
Disintegrate.
yeah, give me some better, give me some better, give me just one more spell and I would be happy with that, right? The staff can have 2 or 3 spells and that's enough. And then defensive wise, right? Defensive wise, you can even have more fun with the defensive now that we understand that, right? What if you can have like 2 aspects where, as a reaction, well, I guess no, because this was all about just like magical resistance, right? So, how would we rewrite this one? Because I was almost thinking like, how funny would it be to do almost a thing where when you attune to this item, for every attuned item that detuned or that was shut down, however you did it, and for every magical item that was zapped of power. So basically, when you attuned it, count how many magical items you had on you, and count their, if you had a +2 something, add that as 2.
Mhm.
Every other magical item is just a 1. Add all of that together, and do something to where like that's your magic resistance, to where it's like when you attune to this thing, all of that got put into like the defensive shield against magic. Something, like,
Interesting.
I don't know how exactly, maybe like, your AC goes up like by that much against magical attacks, or against magical weapons, your AC goes up by however many items you had on you that it, absorbed. Because like the idea just being that this
That
is
could be a
only,
lot.
it could be, but if it's only against magical attacks.
But if you have a +24 to magical attacks,
But that's what I'm saying, is just
+24 to my
focusing,
AC.
but only, yeah, but you know what I'm trying to say is like, I'm just trying to think of
Yeah.
like a different way that you could approach all of this.
If I could cap it at a +5.
Even just that, even just a +5 AC against magical attacks, right? And
+5 to your saving throws to magical attacks. That's basically advantage.
yeah, right there, perfect, right there. Just so +5 AC against any magical attacks, and +5 to all saving throws against anything magical. And again, that's just right there. So at that point, you may only get a +3 because you only have 3 items on you. Maybe you had more than 5 items, but I like that idea. Cap it, but change it to the whole thing of when it cursed you and you were like, I lost all of that, but I'm like, but it took the magic and did something with it. That's kind of what I want to see from this, right? So I would be okay if the defensive was more based up around this surprise of however many items you had on you. I wouldn't mind that. Even if it even said like, even if you wanted to put in some safety language of with a minimum of 2. So like, even if you didn't have, if for whatever reason, if you didn't have any magical items on you, it would still give you a minimum of a +2.
Gotcha.
So the items basically get you to the +5.
Gotcha.
So those are, to me, that would be the better way to do this, is take away several of the abilities, take away the complications, and really just decide what it's for. And I think the best part to do is lean on who it was for, because I think that's the problem. I think as I've read this, as I've seen it, and again, from a player point of view, if I were to go up against this, I would be convinced this was designed against players. Like this was designed specifically to punish a party. And again, just it doesn't feel as entertaining as I would like it to. But with the changes that we have suggested, I feel like it has more of a purpose. It has more of a thought
had
process.
an idea earlier talking about giving this to a like a prison warden and using it to like
Oh,
keep inmates in line when they like act
right.
out. Like I kind of like that vibe, you know, just basically being able to like destroy because people ain't gonna be in there, start riots, thinking they're hot shit and all this other stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
the warden comes out and it's like, let me take you to church, let me take you to school, let me just. It's like they're
Right.
smacking their ruler in their hand or something.
I like that.
Wild.
So yeah, so okay, so overall it's for the setting that it's in, I'm sure it makes more sense than what we know.
Sure.
But as an item that could just be picked up by anybody, I think it's far too powerful. And it's far too difficult to both justify and write into your own lore. It's, you know what I mean? It's just
Sure.
there's both not enough and there's too much going. There's not enough understanding about it, and there's also too much going on to just be able to drop this in a loot box, you know, a loot chest, or on a loot table, or even give to your own BBEG, right? There's a lot going on with it. I think that for DMs, one of the biggest issues is just that there's too much to keep track of. I think that's going to be the hard part for most DMs to want to use this. As for a player, again, because it feels so focused on one-upping a group, like a group of adventurers, I'm starting to wonder where, yes, it can do a whole lot, but outside of, again, the its primary is making you basically just shrug off magic. Beyond that, I don't know what it's doing for a player. Like if this was designed to be picked up and attuned by a player, I don't really know what player is going to want this item. You know what I mean?
I will say with its original abilities of having like all the magical powers and all that stuff, with the exception of the curse just screwing your health, I would say there would be a lot to want, but again, it would just feel like so much.
It would feel like it changed you too much, and now your entire character is based off of this and not what you've built. So, yeah,
it's almost like what's his name? What's the naked blue guy?
Oh man, Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah. Just getting like stupid power out of freaking nowhere.
Yeah, so that would be my biggest thing. Is just
that's what you are now.
I don't know what DM would be willing to really like ingest all of this to make it seamless, because this would be a lot to try to like work into a combat, and I don't know what player, again, with that, especially if they didn't know about it, if they didn't have a chance to learn about this item, I'm just not sure what players would be stoked to have come across this. So I do think that it's savable. I do think that it's going in a good direction, and I do think that we can manipulate some of these things. I think just a lot has to be taken off. I think it has to just be trimmed up, not just for language purposes, but again, I think it's just overthought. It's over-engineered. It does so much, and it doesn't need to be a great item, to be very powerful. It doesn't need to do everything under the sun. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's trying to be written as if it can do anything in almost every situation, and you don't need it to do that. You could have just had this thing be a shield against magic. You could have just having it given you a couple extra spells and made your low level spells, hit harder. It could have just given you, some extra melee stuff, and do the charm thing. Like any one of these, sections, the offensive, the defensive, any one of these paragraphs would have been fine for a magic. It's just altogether, it's just too much.
Yeah.
So I hope that it was a good review for you, Cosmic. I hope that you understand where we're coming from and understand that we do want the best for the item, but as written, it's difficult. It's very difficult to want to bring this into a setting that it's not designed for. I do think it has merit. I think it has chance. But especially for something like High Point, like kind of like what Kage said before, things like this just simply don't exist in High Point in terms of like just the level and complexity of what they can do. And even the things that did at one point, exist that were similar to this were basically banned during the First Great War, because of this exact reason, because this was the kind of thing that I would do where I would make an item and I just didn't ever want it to look bad, or I would make something that was just like, it's not supposed to be, it's not supposed to have some glaring, oddity about it. And then after a while, you're just like, no, that's what makes things have character. Like that's what gives them a challenge, and not just, well, once I pick this up, why would I ever put it down?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would just say that for your setting, it may make sense, but understand that you as a DM, Cosmic, you're gonna have to be the one that explains this. Like, that's the other thing that I always, like that I would try to stress for people who are running homebrew, especially for your own campaigns. You have to be the one to explain it. So if you are gonna have players up against this fight, you have to be ready to, explain to them what's happening, why it's happening, and you have to be ready to do all of these things. You know what I mean? Like when they're about to cast a spell, you have to be ready, and you have to know, what ability is going to proc and how it's going to proc. You have to know, and keep track of like the HP loss if this person ever casts a spell, right?
Yep.
So there's just a lot that you have to be prepared for if you were going to run this, because you have to be able to explain it. And it's okay to make things that aren't intended for players, right? Like I've made plenty of like magical items that were 100% purely based for the person whose hand it was in.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times it's easy to just make those items break at the end of the combat. You know what I mean? Or lose those items. Or they have some sort, you have some sort of like, tertiary backup plan, so it doesn't end up in the player's hands because it's not supposed to, right?
Right.
Not that they can't, obviously, like they could still figure it out, but there's ways to make it to where if you want something that makes perfect sense just for the scene, you can. You can give someone a weapon that's literally one of a kind and only works that way for them because you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you want to put it, all out like this, it's one of those things where you really have to look at it from the point of view of, do you want to run this? Is it going to be easy to run as a DM? And then once it's in your player's hands,
what are the consequences going to be?
Yeah, are they going to enjoy it? Are you going to enjoy being a DM every combat this thing is? Because again, you built it for the one fight, but again, once it gets into a player's hands, you have to run that every single fight. These rules apply every single combat.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a lot, right? I mean, what do we say for the resistance, the creature, take damage, and the condition on themselves. You can have as many charmed people as you want, technically, according to this too. It doesn't actually put a limit. Anybody hit by it becomes charmed. For the charmed condition, I'm assuming there's a time limit for that.
Theoretically, no.
So technically, this thing permanently charms people that are hit with it indefinitely until they take damage.
You can
and stay
attack your charmer or target them with harmful spells, ability, or magical effects. Your charmer has advantage on ability checks to interact with social. That's all the charmer.
So technically, I can just walk around town and be like, that thing should be $5 cheaper, right? You know what I mean? Like, you essentially could just infinitely abuse this. So, yeah. Like I said, I think it has a lot of merit. I think it could be really good. I think it's just trying to do too much. It's trying to solve too many problems, and I think it kind of lost its way. So,
fair enough.
My biggest advice would be to reevaluate it from the position that it's intended to be used, right? The biggest things I usually look at are who made it and why, and who's currently wielding it and in what capacity. So,
right.
That this was obviously some sort of evil deity type of creature that made this thing to cause chaos but punish, right?
Sure.
But you also know who's holding it. It's the BBEG's top priest, top healer. So I look at that as keeping that in mind of like, so knowing its health issue, knowing that it's like health thing, I try to find like a race or other type of, thing that I could add to that particular NPC to make it have shit tons of life. You know what I mean? At the sacrifice of probably a lot of other stuff, but it's like, why would the BBG give this staff to someone who doesn't have a lot of HP to give? If knowing that you're my healer and every time you cast spells, you're going to lose life, even not, even outside of the way that I suggested it, you're just going to lose life every time you cast a healing spell. I need you to stay alive long.
Yeah.
So I'm going to find something, whether it's a race or a feat ability. I'm going to find something that has like shit tons of HP. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I would again, that's how I even came up. Like at first we were like kind of at a loss for words. And it was just doing too much. The moment I realized it was in the hands of a healer and a priest, it's like, oh, well, why doesn't it do this? And why, you know what I mean? Like that would be that would be my advice, is just to reapproach this from not necessarily the ground up, but just again, remind yourself, why was it created? What purpose was it? And who's currently wielding it? In what context are they wielding it? And how do you expect them to, not just in the combat, but again, it's something that I like to do, little like DM advice for anybody out there, is like how I balance things and how I look at them is, you could plan this for the fight with the party. But if you want to make it make sense, what's happening right now? Like the party's not like the BBEG doesn't even know the party's after him. What is this priest doing? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If Greater Restoration doesn't help it, did this priest want this thing? Or is it kind of like a drug dealer situation where, he gave him the staff and it's like, well, you can't get rid of the staff now. You need me to protect you because, you can't have any other magical items on you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it that kind of a situation? Did the priest dedicate himself to the BBG? Right? How much life does he have right now? How often does he use this staff? Is the staff even always on his person? He has to attune to it, but all these things only happen while he's wielding it. Is he allowed to put it down? Does he have it in a safe location? Like, these are the questions that I ask myself of what's happening right now with the person wielding it. Why was the item created? But then what's it doing right now? Because right now, if you could say that, oh, the BBEG is constantly fighting battles, so he's always getting healed, like, then how is that priest still alive? You know what I mean? You don't want to have this idea where, like, if someone picks this up and realizes that priest should have.
The idea is that the BBEG runs through priests like candy,
and
that's warlord in itself.
And that's the idea, right? Is so asking those kind of questions can sometimes really nail down what your intent is, right? Like, what is the purpose of me building this? Why are my players going against it?
It'd be wild if it was like you getting assigned to this position is like you being assigned to death.
But you don't know that. It could be like the whole culture could literally be that everyone's vying for this, thinking it's the most prestigious, promotion, and it's basically a death sentence. But they just think, oh my gosh.
But they always die in battle.
Or not. Maybe they're just literally just randomly healing him and just they don't realize it's zapping them. You know what I mean?
Like, even if the way it's traditionally written is it's just anytime you cast a level spell.
Yeah.
So it's like
any level
generally speaking, unless you're just casting sending for the last time and you just all of a sudden kick the bucket, like you're doing some serious casting. I'd say you're probably gonna be in battle.
Yeah. So.
But still.
Yeah. So that's I would just figure out what this is really trying to do, because it feels like it's just trying to punish the players. And if that's what it's trying to do, you're gonna do a good job. Like, if that's what the intent is, it's gonna be good. I just don't be surprised if you run it like that as written and someone ends up being like, so are we supposed to die here? Because I would not be surprised if that's the feeling.
Yeah.
I know that this could easily turn out like players are always clever. Players always do the most random shit. And I'm sure it could technically fall into a situation where a player could instantly stun lock you with a monk and ban it. Like, there's disarm. There are ways around it, but again, you'd have to know this item so well to even like, what party does that instinctually where they try to insta stun lock and disarm the enemy? Like, that's not a normal thought process for most players, right? So unless you knew that this was coming, by the time you realize what's happening, it's gonna be too late. You're already gonna feel like you're getting fucked. Yeah. So, and again, there's not a lot of ways out of this. There really is. Hopefully you have a monk. And if you don't have a monk, maybe you have this banish spell or something. And if not, hopefully someone has the ability to disarm.
And hopefully that they're from another plane of existence, because if not, that's going to last you for a minute. And then you're right back in the same situation.
Yeah. And again, there's not really a lot of disarm mechanics. So
there is actually, I was just looking at a video the other day. Apparently there's an optional rule in APHP. I don't know if it's 2024 or 2014, but there's an optional rule where you know how when you can replace the attack action with a grapple or a shove. Well, apparently you can also replace it with a couple of other different actions, one of which being disarm. And so you make an attack roll, and they get to make some defensive roll, and if you're successful, they drop the weapon.
Interesting.
Like so, like it doesn't do any damage. Like that attack.
No,
Doesn't do any
yeah.
damage, but so I don't like theoretically yes, but like at the same time, I feel like you're right in how situational it is, and like the likelihood that theoretically you could have a monk who's tag teaming with like a rogue or somebody or a fighter or something like that, and they just happen to do the nice little 1-2 stun disarm combo just because that's what they do, and they decide to open up the fight with this guy like that and just wreck the whole thing. But likelihood, man.
Yeah. So, all right. So the hard part is okay. So this does have merit, but unfortunately, I'd have to adjust everything. Like as written, unfortunately, not a single piece of this as a whole. Like the defensive, the offensive, like
Sure.
any individual part of it, even just at that snippet, doesn't really work with what I have in mind for High Point in terms of like how items work, how they're crafted. Again, it's much more about what I look at is the who and the why it was built, like who built it and why, much less. That's more of my approach than what it can do. You know what I mean? Like I always look at, someone made this, someone was trying to solve a problem. So kind of like when we were talking about a while back, I don't know if this was also Cosmic's, but it was it was like a magical item, but it was like for someone who like had specifically crafted this for them because they were like, trying to hide, and they were like, super defensive, always paranoid. And so it was there to like help them like defend themselves. And one of the things that I had mentioned on it was like having it built into where it specifically prevents against something like power word kill, because it was like because the way that the storyline was written, the lore was written about the person and what the item was trying to do, it's like it would make more sense that they would specifically, it was like a one-time, like the ring I think was like a one-time defensive where if someone tries to I think it was actually Lucifer's item, the rings,
his ring collection.
Yeah. And I think one of the rings was like, it can protect against something. And my suggestion was, why doesn't it just protect against a one-time, one-time get out of jail free card, to where, one time you can just say if a spell was going to kill you, it doesn't. Just nope, I'm not. Just that spell can't kill me. And we talked about how that basically, even in lore, you could basically everybody would understand that that's built for power word kill,
right?
Because it's the one that specifically says it's not about HP, it's about death. And you write this to say, if a spell were to kill you, it doesn't. So it's like a one time, even if you do power word kill on me, I'm going to say no.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like that, right? Where you could say that sounds really powerful to negate any death from spell, but it's a,
be, how would you rule it? Would you still take the damage and you wouldn't die? Or would you, so when it comes to power word kill, nothing would happen.
Exactly.
But when it comes to fireball, would you still take the damage? And if the damage
I think
would have killed
personally,
you outright, you would just be unconscious?
I think personally the idea is it's a one-time get out of jail free. So if it were to kill you, you basically just nothing. It's kind of just like that Ultima moment of you just get like a pure shield. So if it's fireball and it would kill you, you're just like, I proc my ring, nothing happens. Just you basically negate the magic period. Not like it doesn't go off.
Right.
It's just that badass moment of the fireball goes off, and as it clears, you're just standing there untouched. Like I told you that wasn't gonna happen. Or power word kill goes off, and then you just stand there going, I told you. Yeah, I'm sorry. Power word what? Like, so that's things funny. like that's how I would rule it, right? But in the same context of you want to really make sure that you understand like what is the true effect of it, what is the purpose, and does it narratively make sense? Because again, anything can exist if you want it to. You can just say it does. But is that the most enriching for the game? Is that enriching to you? Is it enriching to the gameplay? Is it enriching to the characters? Is it enriching to the players themselves? Like,
Yeah.
I always look at, you never want to add something, like it's kind of like the Astro. You never want to add something in just to make them feel bad. Like, nobody wants to add in a battle that I intended you to lose and there's no way you can win. You're going to lose, but it has nothing to do with the storyline. I just want to kick your ass in a battle. I'm tired of you beating all my NPCs up. So I just made a battle to make you guys feel bad. But it doesn't matter to the story. It literally isn't going to change anything. After this, you guys are going to go back to normal. I just wanted to kick your ass. That is not fun. Nobody wants that in a game. Now, granted, if you do that and knock everybody out thinking, shit, you just TPK'd us, and then you all wake up in prison, and it's this big old reveal of you've been being followed and your best friend was the BBEG's brother all the time. Shit like that can be entertaining because you're like, oh, we weren't supposed to win that. It made me feel bad. Like, some people just don't like that concept.
Yeah.
But as long as it's pushing the story along, they're going to be more likely to go along with it. But again, it has to make some sort of sense, and it has to make the entire thing enriched. You don't always have to have fun. So players are not always going to have fun. But that's why I use the term enrichment, right? If something was enriched, if they learned something from it, if they've gained something from it, if it's pushed the narrative or the plot along, it's enrichment. But if it's just there and it just provides a negative experience, you got to question why. Because if you just want them to have a bad experience, then do you really want to DM for them?
Yeah.
TPK to start the party as skeletons. That'd be fucking hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Like the first match is just a wicked ass battle, and at the end they all just get toasted, and they're just like, all right, life as skeletons begins. But yeah, so going back to this one, so yeah, I do see merit in it. I do see that there's some good ideas and some good thoughts. It does too much. It needs to get cut down, and I think it needs to redecide what it wants to be. Just really figure out what is the main purpose for this. It does have a couple good ideas behind them though, so it's not going to be like a complete like failure. It just needs a little. I mean, it's not completely useless. It's just too overpowered. So it's not like a one or anything. Unfortunately, I'm probably have to just give it a 3. It just, I literally every piece of it has to have some sort of adjustment. So I would just have to be honest with myself in terms of like, if everything has to be adjusted, and I don't really see individually, it doesn't really give me any like, oh, I don't have that in high point kind of thing, right? So there's really nothing I can work with on this one. It's not like I'm not suggesting this thing get rewritten from the ground up. Obviously, each part has its merit. It just doesn't need to have so much.
Well, it's like adjusting each one of the different pieces, for sure.
Exactly. But that's the thing is, if it were only like the curse and the defensive part, I could easily be like a 4 or 5. But unfortunately, each piece just feels too much. So
sure,
that's going to unfortunately bring Cosmic's average down, but not too much, I don't think. I honestly don't think Cosmic's going to get, because he has like a couple, I think he has like 2 10s.
Yeah,
and a couple 8s. So
So
I can't imagine this is going to tank his average.
it does not.
He's got to still be at like 6 or 7.
He's still in the upper 6.
Okay, and he's pretty much been there for a while.
Yeah, he's been up in here for a good bit. He's upper 6, getting close to 7.
That's still good
So-
though. That's still good. So this one's not going to do great for his average, but it's not everything can be a banger. And again, this is not a score on whether or not it's a good item. This is just whether or not I'd be able to use it in hype.
Fair enough. Exactly.
Maybe chat has a different idea. Maybe some people in chat really liked it. I did see a couple different comments where people liked the idea behind it. They liked what it was doing,
Wanna put
but
it as a warden, do different things.
yeah, there's just I think the just general consensus was it was just a lot.
Yeah.
And then you can't really do a whole lot with with that kind of aspect, especially because nothing in 5th edition really operates like that. There's really no item, or like, again, subclasses are the thing that give you the most, but everything else is pretty clear cut and concise.
Yeah.
It's only the occasional spell that gets really convoluted and complicated. Like spells and subclasses are the only thing currently in 5th edition that I feel can take some time to like really digest. Everything else, feats, weapon abilities, conditions. I feel like 5th edition's done a really good job at being pretty concise about what those things are. And I think that's like the struggle with something like this is Cosmic wants to have something that is really impactful, but it can be very easy to go overboard and make it to where it just stands out from the norm. You know what I mean? It doesn't have that 5th edition feel of I read it, I get it, and I can use it. It's more of a I need to read this 2 or 3 times, and then I need
how
to
I want to go about using it.
Yeah, so that would be where I'm at. But I hope y'all enjoyed that review today. What was it? Brain work. Brain needs to. Vinci, hopefully you got hooked up in the Discord, and if you are interested in having one of these, like I said, we do this every Monday. So if you are going to submit something to us, usually brand new followers and first-time submitters usually get bumped up the list. So I would not be surprised if you submit us something soon. Within the next couple of days, you'll probably be moved up either to next Monday or the Monday after. So if you're interested in that, let us know. We also stream every Friday as well. Fridays we usually do a topic-based stream. So we'll do like a history of. So the last 2 weeks we did the history of dragons. We did the history of Dragonborn. We've done history of healing. We've done history of like druids and bards. And then other times we will just take a topic, take a an idea, and then we'll just tangent off of that and just kind of
run with it,
figure out what we like and what we don't like about certain things. And then we have community streams. Typically every month, I will run a community stream or a community goal in chat, and it's usually like this last month was 15k channel points.
Yeah,
chat's already got it, so you don't have to worry about this month. Yeah, it was like 3rd stream they got it. But the community streams are basically something that you all can earn. And whenever you do earn them the following month, so we did one this month, so in February. On one of the weekends, we will add a whole extra stream day. So not Monday or Friday, it'll probably be on a weekend. And then we do an extended stream, usually 4 to 6 hours. And then in Discord, we'll have polls out for chat to decide the topic and the stream type. So we have like 6 or 7 right now, different episode series that we do for the community streams.
Yes.
And within those, so first you guys select what type of episode or series you want to see, and then you will then vote on the type of topic. So we'll have something we call one of our series is a sublet and subclasses.
Yes.
So we'll take a subclass. What we did, the first one we did was Echo Knight. So we took the fighter subclass Echo Knight, and we made an Echo Assassin. So we made a rogue subclass with a similar background lore wise as well as the abilities. But we transition those abilities so they're not 1-to-1, but they are what a rogue would do with the idea of an Echo behind it. We also have another series called pop culture builds.
Yes.
So we'll take a pop culture character. Yes, Shazam was the first one we did. So we take a pop culture character from movies, TV, comics, anything like that that's submitted by the community. And first one was Shazam. And what we do is we take that and we take everything we know about it. We detail it out with the lore and everything from where it's from. And we try to do our best to make a D&D representation as best we can using D&D mechanics. So instead of just saying they can do it, obviously we try to find how you would be able to build a character from the ground up to eventually achieve the end result. So, we decide what level the icon is at the start, because sometimes they start at level 20 and sometimes they may be weaker. So we'd have to finish them. But the idea is building out an actual PC build to where if you were to follow it, you could basically say that like that's Shazam. Like based on by the time you guys are level 20, you'd have all of the abilities that Shazam. You still want to marry Poppins? Be insane.
I kind of want to do that one too.
I'm trying to think, what else do we have? We have critical cocktails, which is done in a tavern. So chat just suggests drink names, and we have to build a lore behind it. And eventually, if we have the ingredients, we'd even try some on stream. I haven't not looked at the list. It's been like 2 months since we've done a community stream, so I'm trying to think.
Yeah,
what are some of the other episode types we do?
We had the holidays and whatnot.
I gotta look here. It's been a minute. So if we go to a community stream channel, So what do we have? So we have lore and pour. This one is a deep dive on a community chosen topic. So typically what will happen is the community will choose what they want. I think, what was the first lore and pour? Was that the history of gods, right? I think it was a history of gods and divine power. But yeah, basically based on that, we will do like a 4 to 6 hour stream where we will talk and do a big deep dive in whatever topic that y'all have. And we will usually craft 1 or 2 themed cocktails throughout the stream. That will also happen in the tavern. Critical cocktails I already talked about, where we just talk about lore and backstory and how to build based off just names. Tavern tangents, that's basically just you guys give us topics and Kage and I will sit there and slowly get more and more drunk on stream and talking about random things that you tell us to.
Hell yeah.
Pop culture builds, we talked about sublet and subclasses. Gaming with chat is something that we haven't done yet, but we hope to by the end of this year, where I will run a D&D game and chat will be the PCs. And then of course we have some other options, like if, maybe doing some like DM interviews with like, other DMs and other streamers and things of that sort. But yeah, we have a couple of those available. And then again, the community votes on everything, including the topic as well as the series, or the topic as well as the series. So that sounds fun. Keep in mind for that, we have a entire poll channel. Oh, mine's I posted. Awesome. I will have to read that. I posted in Homebrewing.
Oh, did he?
Looks like he posted a big question for everybody. So
ooh, very nice, very nice.
Looks like Soul already got back to him, so that's good.
Excellent.
I will have to check out that.
Soul's always on top of it. Speaking of which, I believe Soul and Hecate have I don't know if it's time for that, but they are submitting a little competition they had between each other.
Yeah, so what is this all about?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know that this is one of the things that Soul was working on when they came in and popped in and saw me streaming the other day. I believe that they have some like homebrew head-to-head that they want to do. Now, I'm not sure if they're trying to get separate reviews or if they're trying to like create a submission that's supposed to be submitted in tandem. But
because they've both created something similar but different. They both individually created something that's similar, but it's not the same thing.
I believe so. Yes. I believe so. Yes. Correct us if we're wrong, Soul.
Yeah, I'm curious how this is going to work. I really want to know how this is supposed to work. Like, with what they made, what do they want us to do about it? Kage does have a stream. He streams on Tuesdays.
I do indeed.
I can
when most applicable.
I always think I always spelled this wrong. I think it was nope. I think I spelled it wrong. I don't know why I can't ever get your name right. Like, out of all the people, I think it's because I type your name the least.
Oh, my gamer tag?
Yeah, like I think I just type it out like the least amount. There we go. So if you guys want to follow Kage, just shouted him out in chat. So go and check out his stream. He does it Tuesdays. You do development, like background development for MisfitGamersStudios, as well as some coding.
Yes, exactly. I'm learning a lot right now. Right now, I'm working on our template for a lot of our homebrew and stuff. So I'm gonna be very excited to see if we can't start testing some of that out. But I really need to learn the CSS coding for the background so that I can actually make it look like whatever we need to make it look like.
I'm excited for this.
Once I know,
I haven't seen anything, chat.
Settings, we can actually start doing some things. So.
All right, so the Soul says the challenge was same idea in their own different ways. For example, but not what they chose, choosing to say make a race based off of foxes, and they both make a fox race, but their own unique way. So they both had a target idea and then decided to make it themselves. Hecate says we had an idea for a subclass and created it based on how we thought it would be, and we wanted each of us to review it. So we wanted each of y'all to review one, let Kage review his and Vortex review yours, or vice versa, and see if y'all wanted to decide who reviews who.
Interesting. Now, are you talking about on different episodes? So, like,
Yeah,
one
like-
episode I will review Hecate's, the next episode I'll review Soul, or you'll review Souls.
But do you only want one review each? Like, is that what you're saying? Is you want only one person to review it, or do you guys just like? Is it supposed to be? I'm curious. It's like, are you trying to have us choose which one is like the better? Or are you trying to figure out who would have the higher like high point like compatibility rating? I guess it's a bit. I guess what I'm confused on is I get the challenge you two did, but what is our involvement?
Fair
Like
enough.
what are we supposed to do? Because if it's just two different creations, and we could just review them, and they can get
have their
individual
own-
review. You know, they have their individual like scores. But if this is more of like a individualized competition where they are going head to head, I'd want to review them side by side, especially if it's like a subclass or something, because then you can kind of go, you can work along with it, because it's a subclass, so we go like each level, you would go through it and match it up. So I would say if it's a competition, we'd have to do it side by side.
Side by side would be
instead of-
hard to have one reviewing one and the other reviewing the other.
Well, and that's why I'm like, I don't know how we could do individualized reviews. That doesn't really make a lot of sense, because you would just review it, but then I wouldn't really know much. I'd either have to just listen to you and not provide input, but then what's the point? At the end of it, you reviewed one, I reviewed one, but then what?
I feel like a way we might be able to do it is kind of how like when we do the switch places, like I actually read the review.
Mhm.
Just imagine, instead of doing like actually switching places, you read the review for one, and I would read the review for the other, and so as we're just going through, like you'll talk about one, and then we'll hash it out, and then I'll talk about the other, and then we'll hash that out, and then we'll do that till we get to the end. At least that way, it's not like we're having to interrupt the flow at all, and it still kind of gets the vibe that each is reviewing one, or at least speaking about one.
Yeah, I definitely say side by side makes the most sense, because if it's supposed to be a competition in some way, it's like if we just reviewed them individually. I mean, again, if you guys just want individual reviews, we'll just put them on different Mondays, which is one thing. But again, if you two are trying to make a competition, it'd have to be side by side, like on the same day. They're just splitting them up would then just be more of a who gets the higher high point.
Sure.
And again, high points aren't really for that. Like compatibility is completely different than usability or nice or like how good things are. Like who hit the idea more on the head. So it's not really going to be a traditional review. I think it's going to be more of we get the same prompt that they did. We'll have to, in our minds, come up with what we think of, and then as we read them, who got closer to what we think the prompt made, I guess, would be
who hit the nail closer to the head.
Okay. So we will
could you think we could do this as like a Friday episode?
I'm thinking this is definitely not going to be a Monday episode, because I don't want to ruin like the pace, and this definitely isn't quite the same as a normal review. So I think we'll do this on a non-Monday, whether that's on a weekend, like probably not for the community stream, but we could either do an extra stream or definitely put it on a Friday. Have both of those been submitted?
Let's take again. Oh, they wanted us to count them down. I heard that in chat. They were like, they're gonna both hit their submissions in 3, 2, 1. Submit.
I mean, y'all can. I mean, he just counted it down. Did you all submit them yet? Because that was the countdown.
Wow.
But yeah, so I would just say, so get those formatted, and within the next 2 weeks, we'll have to figure out what day will be best, and then how we're actually going to tackle that. Because, I don't want to disrupt the stream. Because again, it's like if we're going to do them side by side, it's like the idea of like, I'll have to think about how that's going to work, like
sure
content wise, because there's just, you don't want to ruin the flow too much because we're going to both be talking over each other, but you got to make sure that we know how we're like where we're at in any given situation for the audience. So
very fair.
How we go about this will be interesting. Yeah. I gotta stop thinking about this on stream because we're live. So yes, we will. Okay, they both just submitted. All right, so we will talk about that over the next week or two. Just give us some time to figure out how we're gonna implement that, and then we will have that stream as well. But I think that is going to be the end of us for today. I have to go into the office tomorrow for some meet and greet BS.
So much fun.
I got to go stroke some egos of higher ups. So that's going to be fine. Whatever. They're gonna feel empowered because they told a whole bunch of human beings to be somewhere than they were because their jobs are important, to like live and eat and shit. But hey, they're gonna think because it's about respect.
Of course.
That's all that really matters. Serotonin, thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you. Everybody, thank you so much for showing up. It's always great to see. I mean, we have 8 people watching. This is fantastic. It's always great to see everybody. I mean, it's so funny. As much as I love Fridays and I love the history of like 2 years in, and reviews are still like everybody's favorite. I think just everybody loves these reviews, man. But yeah, it was good to see everybody. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. I hope your week's gonna be all right. Mine's gonna start out shitty, but hey, you know what? We will we'll deal with it. That's all right. Vincey, thank you again so much for the follow. If you're still here, hope you appreciated everything, and we look forward to any of your submissions. If you have any questions, just ping me or Kage in Discord, and we can let you know any questions you have about how the Discord works. Hopefully all of the chats and all the channels make sense. They're all titled as best we can to make them, pretty direct, and they're categorized to hopefully, be either stream specific or Discord specific.
And I sent a message to highlighting some of the ones that they were talking about when they first got here, so
excellent.
Hopefully that helps.
What is next week's item review for Monday?
Next week's item review.
Toilet, go to sleep. Jesus, 6 a.m. Yes, go to sleep.
Goodness gracious. Waking up around that time. Next week's item review is going to be by Desmar Sama.
Oh, it's been a minute since
it's going to be another new race. It's going to be called the Golems.
Ooh, okay. I like that already. I'm already stoked for that.
I was like, let's
I'm already interested for that. Okay, so be here next Monday for the Golems, a new race by Desmar Sama. And I think we're going to take a pause on History of, because we just did 2 back-to-back. So I think we're going to come up with, I don't know what we're going to do this Friday. Maybe we'll just do another Tangent Talks. Maybe we'll come up with a, I don't know. I actually recently started gaming with Bixby again, and I'm going to be gaming with Kage here soon. Just getting our actual campaign started back up again. And I got a couple buddies who are hopefully going to start DMing with me, or playing with me as a DM soon. So now that all that's getting kicked off, I want to start adding in more like behind the scenes series, just talking about like what I'm doing DM wise. So if you guys want to hear us talk, check back this Friday. We'll be doing some more, probably some more behind the scenes talking about High Point, maybe even doing some more High Point histories. It's been a minute since we've done some High Point histories. Delicious and Dragons. But yeah, otherwise, no other major updates. We still don't know what we're gonna do, depending on what happens with TikTok this month. So, most likely we'll still be on YouTube. For 100% sure, we'll still be on YouTube, and we'll see what happens with TikTok. Otherwise, that's gonna be us, guys. So I hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you guys have a fantastic week ahead of you. We'll be back on Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as always. And if you see me otherwise outside of those dates, I'm probably just playing games and chilling on stream. So come in, say hi. We don't mind you guys coming in for the support. Anyway, thank you so much. Love all of you. Love the support. We'll be back on Friday. Cheers.